Hey, what's up? This is your girl Diamond. So we have a couple of chapters that I want to discuss with y'all from this book called I'll tell you what it's called later on. But I want to give people a chance to come in. I think we're gonna do two chapters today. Different book, but I think y'all like this is a little bit more less about history and more about, people's lived experience and nuanced lived experience around different types of work. Hey, hey, Vex, how are you? Make sure as you come in, we're gonna thumbs up. Hey, CL. This book is called Bad Fat Black Girl by Cecily Bowen. I follow her on Instagram. When she said she was making a book, I immediately pre-ordered it because she is dope. Plus size, black girl, cool as hell, and yeah, I'm excited about. I was excited about her book. So we're gonna talk of these chapters. I'm scared to say it in this beginning because one of the things, if you don't know about YouTube, what you talk about right in the beginning, they get real spicy, and because we're gonna be talking about spicy stuff, I don't want it to be demonetized. So, the first chapter is about, women of the night or men of the night, that the kind of work that they do. And the next chapter is called Not Straight. And then the other chapter after that, if we get to that, I think we're gonna do three, is called Duck with an F. These, you know, Negroes. you know. She has some spicy names. If I say it, it'll get it demonetized. Uh, so yes, okay. How y'all been doing? How was y'all day today? I went to our commission meeting today, and it went pretty fast. We are gonna have a book fair, a band book fair in April. So if you are in Houston, we're gonna do it at a library, and I will give more information later. But we're gonna be giving out books, popcorn, hot dogs, all kind of stuff, and reading books that had either been banned or just books. And it's a kid family friendly event. So yeah, it's gonna be dope. So we had a meeting today for that, and so I'm excited about that. Just because I think it's gonna be fun and family oriented. You make me want to come to Houston at least once. April seems like a good time for a little book fair. Yeah, April. If I was to come to Houston for an event, oh God, there's always something going on in Houston, so it's kind of hard to. I think the rodeo, like if you want to get a really Houston, Texas event, come to the rodeo in March. Um, excuse me, early May is Splash, which is like the Black Gay Pride, and that weekend is pretty fire. Um, what else? There is a week. I don't know when it is. I think it's in the summer or the fall. I think it's September or July. I don't know. Either middle summer, somewhere between summer and fall. There's a month that's called Houston Restaurant Month. It's really like a week, but some people extend it to a month. Um, but Restaurant Week, and that all the restaurants in the city have like deals, and like if you're a foodie, because Houston is like a bomb culinary experience. There's tons of food out here that's just amazing. So restaurant week is really, really good. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? I don't know. It's always something going on. Always. But yes, if you want to come to the book fair, then yes, April is good. We're gonna do the book fair at the mid-April or end of April, somewhere around there. Also, we haven't put ink to the paper. If you are in the Baltimore area, we are going to do, if they give me a nice price, we are going to do a yacht party, like a boat party, but it's like a yacht boat. Gonna do a yacht party, kind of. I want to do something fire on a yacht and just bring trans people together and have fun and party with a DJ and stuff like that. So we wanted that to be at the end of March with at the end of March for Trans Day of Visibility, like on that 28th. We're still hitting for that, but we're waiting on some sponsorships to come through. So if it comes through, it's going to be March the 28th, that weekend. And so I'll be in Baltimore and we'll be having a yacht party. Want everybody to come. What else? Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff coming down the pipeline. I want to start having more like meet and greet type of events where we can kind of come together. And I want to do one on the East Coast. I want to do one in the South, and I want to do one on the West Coast. But I haven't decided exactly where on the West Coast yet. My co-host is in Seattle, so probably Seattle, maybe. But if we do Seattle, that's gonna be like summertime. Yeah. That sounds like fun. Ravina, Bravo Bookstore, and Villa Bookstore in our great author events and LGBT affirming establishment. My favorite bookstores here in Houston are Black owned. Kindred Spirit, they're Black women owned. I like them. They're my favorite, and they're LGBT affirming too. I've never been to Brazos or Blue Willow bookstore, so I don't know what they're giving. But the one I'm familiar with is Kindred Spirits. I love them. Yeah, so let's get started, y'all. Oh, if y'all are if y'all are TikTokers and y'all are trying to follow, TikTok is about to be done on Sunday or whatever they saying. If it's gonna be done, follow me on Seattle, a nice city I visited. Yeah, check Kindred Spirits out in Houston. Um in if you are going to other sites like Red Note, which is Asian based, like really, really Asian based. It's not like TikTok where it's like a lot of folks there. I'm still on TikTok, Diamond Styles. I'm Diamond Styles everywhere. So if you are on Redbook, I'm Diamond Styles. If you are on if you switch from Twitter to Blue Skies, I'm Diamond Styles on Blue Skies. I deleted my Twitter account, not my freaky one, but my main my main one. I deleted that. Um, if you are on what other? So Red Note, what was the other one? Lemon 8. I am Diamond Styles on there. I'm Diamond Styles everywhere. That is my brand name. So I'm gonna be Diamond Styles almost anywhere I create an account. And that's Styles, Stylz is in zebra. So that's the T. So what other updates? What other updates? What other updates? Hey, Ray. Hey, Musical. Hey, Ariana. I think that's how you say it. They said it's extended 270 days. Oh, that's a long time. Extending it 270 days. Oh, that's what? That's like a quarter, 2 quarters of the year? Not 2 quarters, 2/3 of the year? Oh, child. I have fan base, Diamond Styles on fan base, but I haven't really got into it. Um, I do have an account though. um, you know what? I have thoughts. Black capitalist thoughts, but I'll save them. This is just not the time. So, um, but yeah, I have thoughts. Um, all right, so let's get started. So remember this first chapter is called Sell It. Sell It. Y'all ready?
Chapter 6, Selling It. Top-notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. UGK, International Players Anthem, I Choose You, featuring Outkast. He was a small and nerdy white man. Standing about 2 inches shorter than me, he was less than half my body weight for sure. When I opened the door to my studio apartment, he peered at me through thick-rimmed glasses with a giddy, boyish grin on his face. He looked exactly how I thought he would, based on the information he conveyed to me via email. I knew that he was married and that he worked in academia. The alignment of what he told me and his physical appearance put me at ease, especially after I assessed that I could easily beat his ass if he tried me. Period. If he intended on putting me in danger, he would have to pull out a gun or find a way to drug me. Otherwise, he'd be leaving in need of medical attention. I smiled at him, greeting him warmly like he was a high school crush I was seeing for the first time in years. All the while, I was scanning his face, hands, and mannerisms for any signs of shiftiness. One flash of darkness in his eyes would have ruined everything, and I would have started executing an abort mission. A nosy neighbor could have easily passed him off as a coworker or an IT guy, since it's unlikely that we hung out in similar circles. But I didn't even want to give anyone the chance to speculate, so I hurried him in and shut the door behind him. After scanning him one more time, we finally touched when I offered him a top-heavy hug. I shivered a little as we separated, partly because no matter how high I turned the heat up, I couldn't get rid of the winter chill in my cheap-ass, poorly insulated apartment, but also because I was a little nervous. When I saw him put an envelope down on my table at an angle where I could see the contents inside, I relaxed a little. Once he was face down and naked on the bed, with no gun and no roofies in sight, I relaxed a little bit more. I stripped down to my underwear and started to massage his pasty skin with some of the surplus massage oil I had from my short-lived time as a sex toy entrepreneur. After a few moments, he turned over. Through his little nerdy glasses, his eyes danced with excitement. He told me how good my hands felt. I smirked back at him and said, "Thank you." I worked my hands up his nimble thighs, and he let his head fall back onto the pillow.
Period.
He was just as relieved as I was that this was going so smoothly. I didn't have anybody hiding in my closet with a gun ready to rob him. I hadn't offered him a drink with drugs fizzing at the bottom of it. I was just a pretty, fat black woman with big titties spilling out of my bra, a soft double stomach within his arm's reach, and thighs that warmed his body up, giving him the massage he'd asked for. With him on his back, I intentionally avoided touching his dick. Not because I was repulsed by the first white peen I'd ever seen this close, or because I wasn't enjoying putting on this performance for him, but because I wanted to make the performance even better. I wanted to prolong his relaxation. I intuitively understood that in this case, anticipation was an intoxicant. So I massaged my way up his thighs and then outward to his hips, letting my forearm barely graze the tip. Then I moved onto his torso and chest. I repeated this a few times, slowly, until his exhales transitioned into audible moans and his hips began to subtly shift. That's when I knew he was ready for his happy ending. "You're incredible," he said when he was finished, propping himself up on one elbow and studying my face. I thanked him, kissed his cheek, and began picking his clothes up off the floor, placing them on the bed next to him. It was time for him to go. The contents of that envelope were calling my name. I chatted him up as he got dressed. He was suddenly curious about me and my background, what I was studying, where I was from, and what I hoped to do after college. I made up fake answers to every question and told him to email me anytime he wanted to come back. No more than 20 minutes had passed between him walking in and walking out of my frigid apartment. There was still enough time for me to make it to the bank and put the $150 he left me in that envelope into my account. My first job as a formal sex worker was done.
Boom. So you see what we're talking about. All right. So it gets spicy. So she's opening the book with her first experience turning a date. All right. So of course I'm going to tell y'all about. This is not my first formal experience. I've already talked about that before. I want to talk about the first time that I ever done something for money. It was not a formal sex worker situation. It was not a formal situation. It was a informal, random thing. So I was in college. I was a RA, and I lived in Dixon Hall, which is the boys' dorm in at Jackson State. Dixon Hall. That's where all the freshmen stayed. So when I became an RA, so this is was this first semester? Yeah, this was like first semester. So I went that summer, and then the fall semester started, and then the spring semester started. So I had already been there that summer, and then the fall semester started. So this had to be like the fall semester. So this probably like October, maybe. Anyway, there was this dude named Ernest. Ernest was my type. Ernest was dark as hell, cute ass lips. He had some little skin problems, like some little acne bumps. Sometimes he'll have them little flare ups. So sometimes his skin did look at it. He had the color I like, but it wasn't as smooth as as I would like. But he just was super, super dark. And my type is, I don't like dudes that look racially ambiguous. I like dudes who look black. I mean, I like you to have nappy hair. I like you to have dark skin. I like you to have full lips, big nose. I like you to look like a black man. That is my favorite thing. I love it. So he looked like that. He looked like he was from Mississippi. He was just a yummy, yummy chocolate dude. And so he was about 6 foot, just a little bit taller than me. And he was like a fun dude. He was just fun. And so he was one of them dudes that, you know how when you in kindergarten or first, second grade, like a boy that like you kind of would not bully you, but always got a joke or trying to tease you a little bit, but maybe like push you, or he'll do something childish, some like either hit you or try to tease you or something about something, not as vitriol and negative and homophobic as like a bully, but you can tell it's intended to get your attention. It's not intended to like embarrass you or be homophobic. It's intended to get your attention. So he was like that. Like he always had a joke. He always had always had something to say. He looked like he was from Mississippi. No, he was from Mississippi. I didn't say he looked like he he looked good and he was from Mississippi. He looked like that's where he was from, literally. um so he um so he was just that type of dude. So we started to have this relationship where when he would see me, he would like do his little face like this, like ugh. Like but not in a like negative way, in a playfully negative way. um and so I would look back at him, "Ooh, to you," and it would kind of go back and forth, blah 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 blah. And so as time went on, the flirting turned into more sexually charged flirting. And one day he sees me in the lobby of Dixon and he comes over there and he's talking to me, and we're kind of talking and we start to flirting, but I'm by myself. And this is the difference in this day, is that we are alone for a longer period of time than we usually are. So usually we'll be alone for a couple of seconds and then people kind of start coming, like because of the scenario we were in. Like either he was waiting on his friends and I called him by himself, or I was at the desk for the RA position and he caught me by myself, but somebody is always going to come up to the desk. So it was like we'll have these little moments where we were by ourselves. But what was unique about this time is I wasn't on the clock. So I was just in the lobby just to be there. I think I was watching either 106 in Park or something was on that I was watching that had got my attention. So I was just sitting there but without needing to go anywhere. And this was around class time. So he was, he was for some reason not around the clique of niggas that he was normally around. So he sees me in the lobby. He come over there. He said, "What you over here doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm watching this." And he was like, "Oh, okay." He was, "I'm gonna sit here and watch it with you. See what you something I can't remember. Just a shooting the shit." And but the period of time that we were alone together, that was the unique situation in this particular situation. That was a unique element in this particular situation. We were alone together for probably like a half an hour, which was abnormal. Usually it's like 5 minutes or 2 minutes. Da, 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 da. So it gave us enough time for the flirting to extend to something like, "Well, what's up then?" Right? You feel what I'm saying? So in this moment, he say he said something along the lines of, like he got something for because the way we flirt is like a roast, like back and forth. And so he said something along the lines, "You got a lot of mouth." And I say something like, I say something along the lines of, "You gotta have it with niggas like you." And he says something that leads to sexuality. "Well, show me what that mouth do." Something like that. This is what I can't remember the exact verbatim, but something along the lines like, "What that mouth do." "Well, show me you." Or he'll say something like, "You need a lot of mouth for me." Something along that lines. And I was like, "Oh, then you gonna have to pay me. Yeah, oh, you gonna have to, if I show you any motherfucking thing, you gonna pay me." And he was like, "Shit, how much I gotta pay you?" And so now the conversation lead into this. So I jokingly said that even at this point in my life, I had never been a sex worker. Didn't even, you know what I'm saying? I never had actually, prior to this, I was really, really stuck up in regards to sex work stuff. Cause you got to remember, I was raised as a church kid. And so prostitution, selling your body, that was always looked down on. And so I hadn't had the lived experience to give me the open mindedness around sex work that I have now as an adult. So this is between that time where, you know, life ain't came at me fast. Life hadn't came at me fast. And so I just said that just being like a smart aleck, you gonna have to pay me, just being a smart aleck. And he was like, how much I gotta pay? How much I gotta pay you? Shit, what? Let's go right now. Ain't nobody in my room. And I was like, and I was like, boy, stop playing. Give me some money then. Mind you, I am not serious. I'm actually just saying, just keeping the conversation going. And so when he says, how much you gonna charge me? And I was like, how much you got? And he was like, I don't know. And he reached in his wallet. And when he's like right by me, like where we at, he reached out of his wallet. And I immediately grab his wallet and snatch it from him. And I was like, I'm charging whatever you got in this wallet. And so he was like, that'll be all my fucking money. And I was like, well, and I reach into the wallet and I grab the money and take it all out. I don't even count it. And hand him his wallet back. And he laughed, come on. So we literally go back to his room and I wear his dick out. And can y'all guess how much money he had in his wallet? I want y'all to guess how much money he had in his wallet. Now remember, this is a college student. Both of y'all way off. This is a college student. Definitely not no $1,000. Yeah, I wish it was $1,000. Yes. So now I did tell this story before. It was actually $23. So I gave some head to a boy that I wanted to give some head to for $23. And that was the first time that I ever had sex for some coins, like period. First time I had ever had sex with coins. It was a 20 and 3 single dollar bills. The cheapest trick I ever had. But I would have had them for free. So it was an extra $23 that I had in my pocket. So all right, we're gonna continue listening to this. Hey Ann.
I don't talk a lot about my work as a professional dominatrix or escort for several reasons. The main one is that despite it being the world's oldest profession, sex work is still illegal. The longer I've been out of the game, the more comfortable I am opening up about my history with it, without fear of anyone sending 12 to my door. But perhaps worse than the criminalization of sex work is the stigma around it. As a feminist writer who came up in the age of the personal narrative, I've talked about so much of my sex life on the internet for the world to see. I've talked about having casual sex, kinky sex, queer sex, and cyber sex, while racking up hundreds of thousands of views. None of those pieces have caused me the dread I feel when I think about my family listening to this chapter, where I reference doing all of the freaky aforementioned for payment. Writing this feels very much like running headfirst in full speed toward a brick wall of preconceived notions about money, ethics, sexuality, self-worth, femininity, disgust, body image, morality, and shame that are all enmeshed in the idea of getting paid to fulfill someone else's fantasies. My time as a sex worker allowed me to deeply interrogate many of the themes I've addressed in the book so far: body politics, lawlessness, confidence, money, sexuality, and others I'll write about later. But there might not be another chapter in this book that cuts more to the core of trap feminism than this one. Because there is no group that feels the impacts of racism, sexism, classism, transphobia, fatphobia, capitalism, criminalization, and state-sanctioned violence more directly than sex workers. This is even truer for those of us who are Black women, and especially for Black women who are trans. Trap feminism is very much a project that tries to make sense of this reality while bearing witness to a cultural obsession with sex work. For us to be so disgusted by and ashamed of the women who get paid under the large umbrella of sex work, we damn sure can't look away. All of this is why it was so important for me to finally engage with my own harlotry publicly, even if I'm afraid I'm crossing the line that will actually get me disowned by my family. So here goes nothing.
I'm gonna give me something to drink.
On the rare occasions when I've discussed my full resume to people, the first thing they want to know is, how did you get into that? They undoubtedly envision a seedy, secret underworld that feels distant and foreign. But sex work is actually a very common aspect of American culture. Julia Roberts became America's sweetheart for portraying a hoe with a heart of gold in Pretty Woman. Every few years, an article goes viral about an Ivy League student who moonlights as an escort. The most updated version of that story is that she makes thousands of dollars weekly as a cam girl. The lines between the sugar baby lifestyle and just dating up are steadily merging. On a collaboration track with Megan Thee Stallion, Beyonce name dropped OnlyFans, a subscription-based site where creators can share exclusive and sometimes sexually explicit content with their fan base. In Black pop culture, the student by day is a stripper by night, a trope that is still going just as strong today as it was when Lisa Ray played Diamond in the Players Club in 1998.
My name
female rap thrives on the premise that niggas who can't afford to do so don't get to fuck bad bitches. The nickname for this genre is stripper rap. Even outside media, transactional sex is way more common than any of us are willing to admit.
Hey, Jay.
Our practices around sex, dating, relationships, and marriage often extend beyond our primal desire to simply connect with a person we love. We usually want, negotiate, and receive something that is of value to us in return for performing sexuality. The girl who looks forward to the free meals that come from her Tinder dates because she just moved to New York City and money is still a little tight is leveraging the sexual desire of her potential partners to get her needs met. Your homegirl who won't sleep with the person she's dating, even though she really wants to, because she's trying to lock down a relationship or romantic commitment, is essentially bartering sex for a sense of security and trust. The broke ass nigga who comes over to fuck but ends up staying at your house for weeks at a time while he's in between places is slanging dick for housing, sis. Even when we fuck someone just to get a nut off, we're just trading our nut for theirs, hopefully. It's a transaction. This is why I intentionally use words like professional and formal when talking about being a sex worker, to delineate when I was actually marketing and offering my services in this arena and when I was just a regular hoe, getting people, myself included, off because it was fun.
All right. So I think that is a powerful point that she is making. I have made it before. I heard other people make it before. That, there is a formal sex work. I put an ad up, I advertise, I have a rate, and you come see me for that rate. You respond to the ad and you come see me for that rate. But sexuality being transactional for multiple people, for multiple genres of people, types of people, it is very, very common for people to use sex as leverage to get something that they want. It may not be directly about money, but it is something. If you are only marrying men who have money, if money is one of the criteria that you have for somebody to be marriage ready or marriage material, then you too are bartering your sexuality because you know that sex is a part of that marriage, and you know that comes if you're saving yourself for him and he has to have a certain level of money. Sex is a part of that negotiation. If you are a wife and you know that your husband can't really afford at this time a new washing machine, but you want to convince them to get one to make your home life better, because you want a new washing machine, and you put on your teddy and put on your candles, and you get the mood ready, you ready to suck that meat, and you do your sexual stuff to get him in a happy mood, to ask him to go ahead and get you that new washing machine, and he says, yes, baby, you just put that pussy on me, I'm gonna get that washing machine, and he gets you the washing machine. You just bartered your sexuality to get that washing machine. You get what I'm saying? If you are using sex to get what you want, whatever the scenario is, that's sex work. You are doing it. You are doing that is as simple as it can get. That's just what it is. If you are hooking up with niggas to get meals, if you are hooking up with chicks to get a place to stay, homosexuals, dudes, if you are using your sexuality to leverage to get something, resources, houses, shelter, I mean, food, advancement, you're doing sex work. Just one is just formal and one is informal.
The transition from bro-code to pro-ho was another way that I established my own worth against a backdrop of messaging that I was worthless in sexual context. When people ask how I got into sex work, it's often coming from the same space of confusion that leads people to ask me how I became so confident. They're not interested in the specific steps I took to set up a side business as a provider of erotic experiences, unless they want to be a hoe too. They're curious about how a fat Black girl, who is supposed to be happy and grateful when anyone is attracted to her, ended up in a position where people would pay to engage with her sexually. They want to know how the laws of fat phobia were skirted in order for me to tap into a market of people who not only found me attractive, but also found my time and my body to be worth a monetary amount. In the spirit of transparency, when I first got into sex work, I wanted answers to these questions as well. I was in the thick of that confidence journey when I started professional hoeing. I was just starting to realize that being fat wasn't the burden I had thought it was, that my body was just one variation of body among billions, and that I could inhabit my own version of sexiness. I knew people were attracted to me. That had always been the case. But I was owning that I was attractive. This coincided with a deepened understanding of gender, sexuality, reproductive justice, and body autonomy that I was receiving thanks to my coursework and campus organizing. I viewed sexual repression as a form of control over women's bodies, and I was actively trying to rid myself of a lot of the stigma associated with sex. I wanted all the smoke with taboos, especially the ones that were placed on my body as a fat Black girl. Plus, I was broke, and one of the only other things occupying my energy at the time was keeping up with my bills. Want smoke. Similar to with the shits, which implies that you're down for whatever, wanting smoke means that you're not afraid of confrontation or the consequences of any resulting altercation. There's a saying that the whole shit ain't on you, it's in you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about that because two things. Shame around sex work. I remember when I had to explain to people what I did and I was being honest about it. When I was younger, I remember I used to have to always explain, or felt I didn't have to, but I felt the need to explain how I got into sex work, like the circumstances that forced me into sex work, um, formal sex work. And because of that, it's like I have to just, instead of me just saying I got into just saying I got into sex work because I like sex and I like money wasn't enough, even though it should be enough. Because it's my body. I don't need no other reason other than to want to do it. But when I was younger, I felt like I needed a reason to justify it to other people. So it could be maybe like a moral excuse. Well, I was trying not to be homeless. I got custody of my brother and I was trying not to be homeless, and this is what it led to. That wasn't a lie, it was the truth. Literally, it was literally the truth. But also the truth is I didn't have to stay being a sex worker. Part of that was it was easy. Part of it is, honey, I made $350 in 10 minutes. The first formal trick that I turned. What? And the first weekend, that I was turning tricks. I made $3,500 in 3 days. And at that time in my life, I had never made that much money that quick. These was I remember when we was getting my mama was getting tax checks during season, and she was get $2,700, $1,200, and those checks was like, oh, this is big money. We can go do this and that. In my old school mind, before I became an adult, and had other opportunities, and you get what I'm saying. This was that was big money, and so me making in 3 days, like from the nighttime, from Friday to Sunday, making $3,500. I had never made that much money that quickly, and it wasn't a lot of work. I had to spend 8 hours at Wendy's. At this time, my only reference was fast food, because that's all, because I was a teenager and that's all I worked. So I didn't have to stand on my feet in that fucking uniform taking people orders for days and days and days and days and days, just to have a check that was 250 or something, whatever it was. Because I think at the time I made about either $7 an hour or $8 an hour at the restaurants. I think 7.25. And I think when I went to rallies, I was like at 8.25. So yeah, when I was at Wendy's, I was like 7.25. Yeah, it was just crazy. I just was working fast food and thinking that was like, oh, I got this check. But then I have which is crazy, because I remember when I lived in my apartment was $315 a month. So I was able to pay my light bill and my rent. Like one check will go to my rent and one check will go to my light bill. And then I could buy groceries for a month for like less than $100. Like for a whole month, I could buy groceries for like 80, $100 for myself, for just one person. It used to be a whole different time. I know I sound old, but that was in the 90s. That was 97, 98. And so one bedroom, one bath, not a studio, like literally a separate bedroom, dining room, living room. Like I think it was like 810 square feet for $315 a month. It was wow. Anyway, so imagine and I had worked from the time I was 13. So it wasn't like I was 23. So in this 10 years, my idea of working was going to work, clocking in, and you work for 4 to 8 hours doing whatever cashier job, grill job, whatever you was working, fast food. And yeah, and then they always had me as a cashier. Um and so imagine me doing that and making these $200, $300 checks for a week or 2 weeks of work, and then bam, in 3 days I make $3,500. It's hard to go back to doing regular jobs. It's really difficult. It was really difficult for me, because imagine you like, okay, I'm not gonna be a hoe no more, and then you go to your job and they're paying you $8 an hour, and you sitting there for 4 hours for $8 an hour, and somebody is literally calling your phone, talk about, I got $350 for you to see me, and it's only gonna take 10, 15 minutes. What would you choose? It's like, especially it's different if you ain't never been a hoe, but if you already been a hoe, it's like, oh, who would say no? Unless it just was something you just didn't want to do anymore. But yeah, it was so easy. And so yeah, so there's that. And I remember having used to have the feeling of having to explain why I got into sex work. But then as I got older, I was like, I don't need no reason. I liked it. If you ask me the deeper reason, sure, in the beginning, but I didn't stay a hoe for 5 years because I was in survival mode. I was in survival mode at first, but then I wasn't. I was in, oh, this is easy fucking money. The easiest, especially when you start to travel and go to other cities and people's flying you out for $10,000 and $5,000. And you see one client for $10,000. I remember this dude flew me to Florida, and that was the easiest fucking $10,000 I had ever made. Easiest. All I got to do is spend the night with you, and I ain't even got to spend the whole night because he got me a room, came to see me, and then, honey, he was done. He was done. Bought me the ticket. It was just so fire. The easiest money. And so then you traveling and building your clientele. So each time, and also how traveling escorting works is dope because you come to a city, you see dudes, and when you come back to the city, you're in the hopes that you had a good time with the ones that you saw before. They come back to see you the next time you come, and you get new clients. So you keep building your not portfolio, but you keep building your clientele. And so each time you come to the city, boom, the money gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger each time you come. And so if you're doing that to all these major cities, your pockets is fat. It's love. So there's that. So there's the easiestness of the money and the easiestness and then the feeling of shame. And for me, I grew out of that. I don't have any shame about sex work no more, but I don't need to explain nothing to nobody. It's sex work. Sex work is work. And actually believing that in my heart, like sex work is work, child. Um yes. And then the other side of it is self-esteem and confidence. So I don't, this is not, I don't know how other girls feel about it, but what it did for me. So imagine if you're a trans person, in general, when you come into your truth, living your truth, living in your manhood if you are a trans man, living in your womanhood if you are a trans woman, your life starts to revolve, your gender identity starts to revolve around fixing your flaws. So I gotta get implants. I gotta get on hormones to get softer. I gotta get FFS. I gotta get some type of body contour so I can look more feminine and da 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 da. Da. So you start to really pay attention to your flaws in a way that you didn't pay attention to them before. And so it puts this thing on you that you are not enough how you are right now because your body doesn't match your insides. Now, I don't know about nobody else's experience around their transness, but I'm just telling you mine and other people that I know. So this is how dysphoria works. So that's how dysphoria works, like the incongruency with how you want to see yourself and how you feel on the inside. So the flaws are there because you haven't got the surgery, you haven't got all the things that you wanted to advance you in that kind of passability market. So this is my experience. But for me, when I came into sex work, I was not advanced in regards to my transition. I hadn't got all the surgeries. I had been on hormones. I just hadn't done everything I wanted to do. But these men still was paying me 200, 300, 400, 500 an hour for the little body that I did have, for the look that I did have. They still saw my pictures, and I was the girl in the pictures. I didn't use no fake pictures and want no filters at the time. So I was who I was. And so dudes will come in and be like, oh my God, you look just like your pictures. You so beautiful. Oh my God. And be literally addicted to me coming to see me every week, coming to see me once a week, once a month, once, everybody had different schedules, but they're coming to see me over and over and over and over and paying me top dollar without question. And this is in the heyday of escorting. So it was easy, particularly in with the trans girls, because we were all at one spot. Were either in the paper or we were on the internet on Craigslist and eRoll. So you couldn't just go find us on anywhere. So it was very, very streamlined to get to us. You got to pay to play. Now you got the free hoes. You got the hoes that's free, just giving up sex. Oh, I'm not a sex worker. I have sex for myself. I have a job, and you got bitches fucking for free. You got the butch queens dressing up in drag just to make a coin. So they have ruined the market. There you So many girls is running around the streets and being out in the open, which is a beautiful thing. It's not that it's naked, but not that it's negative, not naked, not that it's negative, um, but it's just a different time that we are in now. And so, but back then, if you were into trans girls, it was only a couple of places you could find us. You can find us at the gay club. You can find us online in the sex worker stuff or in the newspaper. Rarely are you seeing chicks just running around the streets. They are, but they not in the way that we are now. They ain't at Starbucks and Bath and Body Works, and here you ain't just running. You weren't just running into them like we do now. There was a particular place, and online it was most of the time the sex worker. It was the route. So if you didn't have that $300, that 150, 200, 250, $300 to play, especially if she was a bad bitch, you wasn't getting a hold of her. So you getting that amount of money an hour was easy at this time. It was nothing for me to ask for $300 and a nigga bring me $300. It was nothing. But now, child, I hear the girls is having a hard time getting 100 or 50. On the internet now, the joke is the going rate is $40. The going rate was not $40 back in my day. At the risk of sounding like an old hoe, but back in my day, $300 and tip. Amen. But $40 being the going rate for some whole activities. 40? That was like back in my day, $40 was like hostro money. Like when you on the street, like the dope fiends and the heroin addicts and the old hoes that be working the corner in fur coats and shit from the 70s that's still on the track in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Them really low class hoes that they're over the hill. Bad bitches ain't charging no $40. That's just, I don't know what's going on with the girls today, but that's not what it was when I was coming up. They call half hour back in our day, flat rate was an hour. Yeah. My birth mother was a sex worker in the 60s, and she said the money would pull in all the time. Yeah, it just was a different it just was a different time. So a element for me is, imagine the world. Okay, now mind you, this is in the earlier part of my transition. You know, the world is telling me that you ain't never gonna be a girl. You ain't never, some people was telling me I'm never gonna respect you as a woman. Um, they're just doing a lot of, the world is just telling you you are not enough. But these men is coming in with their hard-earned money and saying, you the most beautiful thing that I ever seen here. You deserve my money. Here you go. You are, oh my God. Stay just like you are. I like your body how it is. Ooh, or you get a little bit, either that, or you get a little bit of advancement. You know, you get your titties done a little bit. You get some silicone and they a little bit bigger, and he comes seeing you. Oh God. Oh, and he just making this the upgrade seem like, oh, you getting so much. Oh, look at him. He's just appreciating your advancement in a way that other people around you are not. You know, some people, honey, you getting bigger titties. Oh, I don't care how many titties you get, you still gonna be a man. It's the world, the outside world is still shitting on you, but the clients, they giving you your life, giving you your life. And as a young person, it's hard. Now, you know, now that you're older, you're like, oh, them niggas tell you anything. But they ain't really telling you anything. You are getting more sickening than you were when you started. That is just that's just really what it is. You are advancing in your womanhood because you're getting things done. You're getting softer, you're getting more voluptuous, you're getting better. You're getting better hair, getting better makeup technique. You are literally getting better. So they're not just shooting smoke up your ass, they literally are just appreciating your advancement. That's really what it was. And so as you get older, for me, as you get older in the game, it gave me a certain level of confidence. Whether they were selling me a dream or not, I was advancing and they were appreciating it. And they didn't have to spend their money. I knew bitches who wasn't making as much money as I was. So clearly they like what they see. And for me, there was something that went off in my brain, even in my personal life, that if these niggas can value me, nigga, you who I'm messing around with for free, nigga, you gonna step up to the motherfucking plate in other ways. So if I want to be taken out to the movies, taken out on a date, treat it like I got some sense, and you talking, not talking to me any kind of way, and blah 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 blah. It's something about sex work that gave me the confidence to be like, you have value and you determine how people treat you. Because even with clients, even though y'all spending money, you gonna come in this motherfucking house and you gonna touch me how I want to be touched. You're going to talk to me how I want to be talked about. I make the rules in this motherfucker. Even though you paying, I still make the rules on the rules of engagement. And so it gave me the confidence to not just do that in my sex worker life, but to do that um in my regular degular life. So even to this day, as I stopped doing formal sex work in 2009, even to this day, um, I just can't comprehend some dude just telling me how he gonna treat me or treat me any kind of way. Like I literally will cut a nigga off so fast. Like nigga, you got me fucked up. And that's with gaining weight. That's with being, nothing made me feel like I was not worthy of, because ain't no way you gonna be trying to get into my draws and not treat me how I want to be treated. That's just what it is. Because if I'm not worth it, then take your ass to somebody else. And having that, and I, for me, being a sex worker and having that confidence kind of put the sex work kind of gave me that confidence to have that kind of, yeah, that boss bitch mentality. Like, yo, I'm the boss. I'm worth it. And you're not just doing this because I'm you're not doing me a favor with being with me, or you know, offering your dick. Girl, get out of here. Niggas pay me. So cuz imagine, and another myth that people think about sex work is that all of your clients are either ugly, old. Are some of them ugly? Sure. Are some of them old? Sure. But there are also some fine ass ones too. Fine, 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 fine. Fine, many. And not, you know what I'm saying? It's all walks of life. Young, old, fine, unattractive, slim, tall, big. It's so many different types. And so there's so many clients that are fine as hell. So if this dime piece model looking dude can come pay me $300, yo, dusty, broke, thugged out, street nigga ass, why I'm gonna let you come and treat me kind of way or talk to me any kind of way? No, get the fuck out of here. You want to spend time with me for free? I can spend that time with somebody and get paid. You want to spend some time for free? You gonna talk to me like you gonna give me the princess treatment, and that's what it is. So it just gave me a certain level of confidence just by the sheer fact that these dudes was boosting my ego.
Some people are just cut out for the lifestyle because they have the right cocktail of skills, emotional capacity, sexual openness, experience, and circumstance. I fully believe that because the whole shit was definitely in me. I didn't have any of the moral hangups that lead people to turn their noses up at hoes. I was street smart, could sense danger, and knew how to keep my cool under pressure. I knew how to finesse. Most important, the timing was right. I needed the money and was more than willing to perform all kinds of different versions of femininity when I knew there was cash waiting for me at the end of the tunnel. All of this was true for me before I ever consciously engaged in any kind of transactional sex. And together, they were the catalyst that got me into the game. My homegirls and I were having one of our deep conversations late one night. We were kikiing around the table when the topic of our early 20s financial woes came up. One of my friends was trying to make a joke when she said, "I'm so broke, I'd do something strange for a piece of change right now." In the early aughts, doing something strange for a piece of change was how you talked about hoeing if you weren't trying to actually be mean-spirited or whorephobic. It was meant to be cheeky, but she didn't laugh when she said it, and she cast her eyes away from us as the words left her mouth. It was clear that deep down she meant every word. She just wasn't sure how we'd react. But she would get no judgment here. Instead, she was met with a chorus of, "Shit, me too," from myself and other friends.
Shit.
None of us were laughing either. We didn't know how to do it, but we knew we were down to do it, and we were emboldened by the circle of trust we built. Our first idea was to see if one of us could win an amateur night prize at a local strip club we visited before, and we'd all split the prize money. A few weeks later, the four of us piled into Sandy with our bags packed, ready to cross state lines for a quick come up. When we arrived at the club, my friends who were going to compete waited before they signed up. It was a smart move because after watching the first few contestants go up, we realized they weren't amateurs at all. These dancers were professionals from other strip clubs who had the same idea to make a stack. My friends' chances of winning were slim. None of us wanted to let the night go to waste, though. We chilled in a spot, enjoying free drinks and bomb-ass fried chicken. Fun fact, a strip club is only as good as the fried chicken it serves. Some guys who had been eyeing our crew since we walked in were taking care of the tab. We huddled together and decided that we could take our chances on a more personalized lick. There were four of us. We had one another's backs, and these dudes looked pretty harmless. So we offered them the opportunity for a private show back at their place and got them out of the club before they blew any more money on strippers. At their 2-bedroom apartment in a forgettable complex, my homegirls proved that they were not amateurs at everything. I made sure everyone was okay and held on to the money until it was time to go. It wasn't nearly as much as we'd hoped we'd make on our little come-up trip, and Sandy smelled like Badissi for the whole trip home, but we still get a damn good laugh out of it. Badissi describes the specific aroma that results from the meeting of butt, dick, and pussy. None of us were the hustlers or hoes we would eventually become, but we certainly made some good memories. I would hardly consider this my formal introduction to sex work, but it was definitely what got the ball rolling. As it turns out, my friends were with the whole shit, but they didn't need the money as much as I did, and they weren't as curious about exploring their own sexual politics like I was. So I kept going while they stayed at the ready. I dove headfirst into research and found that my new side hustle was just a few pics and a couple of clicks on the internet away. I posted my first ad, and that's how the nerdy white guy ended up in my crib, getting a massage with a happy ending. If we're being technical, the answer to the question, how did you get into sex work, is the internet. Anyone with a phone can snap some pictures of themselves, decide on an hourly rate, and put it all on a relevant website or forum with their contact information. It was decidedly easier before the extremely harmful SESTA, Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, was passed in 2018. But back when I started, it was as simple as that. There were plenty of resources available to anyone who had the time to do some internet sleuthing on which sites would be best to market and advertise their services, figure out pricing, and what language to use in ads. To actually learn the ropes and navigate this world, though, I had to get to know other women in the industry. My first attempts at joining the community of professional dominatrices, which I thought would be a safer bet legally, were unsuccessful. As ridiculous as it sounds, there's a bit of whorephobia even within sex work. Sometimes providers who offer only visual and audio sensory services, like phone sex operators, cam girls, and strippers who abide by no contact rules, think they're better than those who offer more. And some of the providers who offer contact services, like kink providers and erotic massage givers, think they have a moral high ground over sex workers who provide full service or sex to their clients. And even among full service providers, there is elitism from those who work online at higher rates and with privileged backgrounds toward those who work the streets, who have pimps, those struggling with addiction, or those who work at lower rates and under riskier circumstances to ensure their own survival. In many ways, this internal whorephobia has merged with the purism of some BDSM practitioners, and the result is a strong wariness toward folks who are interested in making money in the lifestyle. Many pro-doms build their professional reputations on the fact that they've been part of the lifestyle in a non-professional capacity first, and they tend to be suspicious of newbies, especially young Black women stepping onto the scene.
All right, so let's talk about that. So I think that what she described with her friends, them kind of building a trust with each other and then out here hustling, trying to turn some tricks. I thought that was a beautiful way to kind of be introduced. You have the safety of your friends, y'all doing what y'all want to do, how y'all want to do it, blah, 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 blah. So I thought that was a beautiful moment. Mine was, I don't want to say similar to that, but it was kind of like, not kind of like that. Mine was different. But it was it was a friend connection. My first formal stuff, like with that had to do with ads and the paper and shit. I was really turning my homegirl's tricks while she was at work. For the first week prior to I had my own ad, she basically was a drag queen, and she would have clients calling her while she was at her job performing. She was on cast at a club, at a drag club. And so what her mindset was, if I let you do the tricks, you give me a percentage, and I'll I'll send the rest to you. I'll send the ones that I can't date to you. At least while I'm at work, I can at least get a little bit of coins with the tricks that's coming to see you. And so the tricks was like $250 an hour, and I would give her 50. So 200 was for me, 50 was for her. Each trick I had, from her, because they would call her and she was sending me, almost like pimping, for real, for real, for real. But I don't like that dynamic of a middleman, of a middle person. I like to make all my money, baby. But because I was new to the game and didn't know about advertising and didn't know nothing, this was my way to get into the game, because I didn't know. But I pay attention and I ask questions, and I was asking clients what was the tea with shit, like, where did you find me at? And so when they would come, I would ask them questions. And so they told me about the paper that they had called her from. And so I went to the office of the paper. And so with the money that I had made that first couple of days with her, I went and paid for my own ad. So the next weekend, my ad was up in the paper the next weekend. And I still was taking her dates, which is why in that weekend I made so much money, because I had my own ad in the paper, and I was still taking her dates and giving her 50, and still giving her $50 from the cut that she would bring. But I had my own ad up. And it wasn't until she went and got a copy of the paper and she saw my ad up that she started acting funny, like, oh, nah, I ain't about to send you no more dates because I didn't know you had an ad up. Da, 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 da. She felt some kind of way about me having an ad, because she was hiding the information from me, which I also thought was petty and stupid and dumb. But, it's business, and you adding another girl to the mix. And it hurts your coins, especially in a small city like Indianapolis, because that's where I was living. It's only going to be a couple of girls in the paper anyway because it's not a big ass city. And so, and then narrow it down to the people who are into black girls. It only gonna be a little bit of black girls. So it just was the competition was steep, honey. And so as soon as I put my ad up, I'm the new girl. I got good pictures, I look good. And so I was pulling bitches coins. Bitches was calling and playing on my phone. and so um and so that's how I started in regards to that. I didn't have a I didn't have any aversion. At the time I had never experienced street hoeing. So I didn't have any judgment of street hoes because I didn't know what went on with street hoes. I thought that they was making a lot of money too. Until I went down there and they were saying that they was turning tricks for $50 and $40 and $60 and $100 for everything. And I was like, oh no, this ain't. Let me go back to Eros and the internet and Craigslist. And so when I was starting, you had Craigslist, you had Eros, you had the paper. So Craigslist, Eros, you always can have a higher number because the clientele from there was just a little bit more upscale. Um, Craigslist was Craigslist. The beauty about Craigslist is because everybody was on that motherfucker. That's the thing about it. Everybody, like trans girls, cis girls, gay boys, everybody was on that motherfucker. So you can set it to where you just seeing pictures and you see everybody. You click it and you mixed in with the fish, you mixed in with the butch grades, you mixed in with everybody. So it's really just, does your pictures look appealing? So you getting first timers, you getting celebrities, you getting all walks of life. You are getting all walks of life from Craigslist. Now your price range ain't as high, but it ain't low either. So so for example, you on Eros you could charge like $300-$400, but on Craigslist it's gonna be like 150, 250. And so where it's easy to get that. And so because it's so many people, but that was kind of like 150, 250 was kind of like the going rate. Um yeah, so it wasn't any kind of the way that she described the judgment is totally, she's totally telling the truth. But at my age at that time, I didn't have any kind of qualms about um street home because I thought they were making the same amount of money. I didn't think that they were doing, and I was like, oh no. And I didn't judge them. It just was like, oh no, why don't you put an ad up? Why would you? But I also didn't understand people navigating addiction. I didn't I didn't I was young and dumb and didn't have the nuance of understanding everybody certain circumstances. And so it was, I just didn't have the mindset that I have now around, yeah, she doing that hoeing because she trying to get her money fast. And also, I remember being in situations where, yo, the tricks ain't coming. When the recession happened in 2008, the tricks ain't coming as frequently as they could back in the day. And so what you gonna do? Sometimes you gotta take that little $100 that somebody's offering you, 150, da 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 da. Sometimes you gotta hustle and just because you just trying to get the bills paid. So what you just trying to get to that? What if the rent is 620, you just trying to get to that 620. That's six that's six clients for $100 and you just trying to get it. So that kind of hustle mentality didn't come until times got hard and you like, oh, I gotta switch this up. You feel what I'm saying? It's just what it was. You gotta get what you want. You gotta get it. And that's the hustle of the game. And I didn't understand that at the time when I was younger because I hadn't been in life situations where I needed to get it. It was just like, oh, this is beautiful. Money is coming, money is coming. So, I was getting what I want. So, yeah.
So despite the fact that I had a genuine interest and talent, if I do say so myself, for dominating men, I never did get a good foothold in the kink community officially. This snobbish exclusivity did not exist among escorts. Many of them were women who, just like me, simply had the whole shit in them. Not long after I started posting ads and interacting on some of the boards, I was in regular communication with several women I shared clients with or I had chatted with in forums. These women were moms, they were students, they were orphans, they had disabilities, they were young professionals. Some of them were out to their families and friends and organized on behalf of sex worker rights. A lot of them kept this part of their lives a complete secret from everyone. A few of them, the ones who were some combination of white, thin, and able-bodied, made thousands of dollars per week traveling to luxurious destinations all around the world with designer bags on their arms. Others barely made enough to support themselves and their families, but had extenuating circumstances that made it difficult to secure other kinds of work. Most of us were somewhere in the middle. In good weeks, we might make our rent in a single day, but that might be followed by weeks without booking a single client. The common thread among us was that we were doing the best we could with what we had and trying to stay out of harm's way while we did it.
And so I want to talk about that. So my experience, one of the girls who really shifted the amount of money that I made just by simply sharing information is Jade. TS Jade. She was one of the first people that I interviewed on my channel. We did at the time, it was like a 5-part series. And if y'all remember my interview with TS Madison, she was like, the reason why she got on the internet is to respond to our video. She wouldn't even be on the internet. And so Madison was responding to my interview with Jade. And one of the things about Jade, when I got she is a hairstylist now. She got her sex change and she got out of the game. Now she does, I think she's a hairstylist or a real estate agent. She's into something else. But yes, Jade was the first girl who, no strings attached, just let me know the traveling escort game. Here is a list of the newspapers in each of the cities. Here is here's a list. She gave me a list of every, like, because she kept a record of it. So she said, here's the list of the newspaper in the cities. Here's their numbers. You just call them. And she had the pricing for it. They got this size of ad. This is 5x7 ad. This is a whole full page. This is how much this costs. This is how much this costs. And she literally had a list of everything for me to be able to find. And then she gave me a link just in case I needed to search for what papers was in that particular city. And she told me, like, not every single city, but like cities at the time that I was like, oh, I'm thinking about going to them. She gave me hotel recommendations where it was quality enough, but not super, super expensive, but it was quality to it. Because one thing about if you want to make good money as an escort, you have to have a good quality hotel. That don't mean high 5-star, 4-star. It don't need to be that, but it needs to be clean in a nice area. It could be a 3-4-star. You can be a 3 or 4-star, but it needs to be in an area that's decent. It can't be in the hood or somewhere ghetto that they think they're gonna get robbed. So she was giving me different hotel suggestions that weren't super, super, super expensive, but they were still nice. And so she did all of this stuff with just out of the kindness of her heart. It wasn't nothing to exchange. Like, we was in Yahoo chat and we would be in there cutting up and having fun. And I had asked her the question, and she just gave me the game. Literally just gave me the game. Like, dude, this what you do, this what you with no strings attached. This is the information, girl. Get your life. And prior to her and this other girl named Josie, Josie is out of Florida. Josie too. Josie and Jade are the sex worker girls who really was like, here you go. And my coins was love. My coins was lovely. I went to New York, I went to DC, I went to everywhere, Chicago, Atlanta, even though Atlanta wasn't good. Just different places. Just went everywhere. Went all around the country. LA. Um, yeah, it was so Phoenix. Everywhere. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Making tons of money. It was beautiful. I lived for it. It was sickening. And I would not have made the money or had the courage. I was a little small town girl from fucking Indianapolis. I wouldn't have had the courage to go to these places and do what I needed to do and make money and get my body done and get my body right if I didn't have the information that Jade gave me. So I'm always grateful for her in regards to that. But because of the nature of the business, a lot of some bitches was really shady in regards to giving you information. Oh, I just talked about Jade and Josie. Another girl who really was sickening for me was my gay aunt. Her name is Maya. Maya's out of Chicago. She's from St. Louis, but she out of Chicago. Maya, if Maya knew that I was going to a city, Maya would call some of her dates and be like, "Oh, my homegirl coming out there. Go spend some money with her." So I didn't even have to, I would have my ads up, but they also, she'll give them my number. What bitches do that? But Maya, because Maya wasn't in the game no more, she was like, "What? I'm holding on to clients that I don't even come to the city no more. And if I know they got some money and I know they like pretty trans girls, shit, I'll go, hey baby, my girl, my homegirl is coming to your city, and I know you like the dolls. I know you like the dolls, baby. I got a doll baby coming. I got a doll baby coming. I want you to go spend some, show her a good time. Show her a good time, baby. Show her a good time." And honey, I will come. This happened particularly in Memphis. I came to Memphis and I had a good clientele in Memphis because I lived at the time. I lived in Jackson because I had moved from Indianapolis to Jackson. And honey, I would go to Memphis and I had a good clientele. But baby, when I told her I was in Memphis, I did have a good clientele, but she doubled it. I was like, oh shit, she introducing me to motherfuckers that ain't even on the ads that I'm on. They on something else, or they just ain't in the business no more. She got their direct number. And so, and all she did, I was on three-way and she was just saying, "Yo, I got a doll in the city. Go see my doll. I know you like the dolls." And honey, they came and spent their money and it was love. So Maya, Jade, and Josie, they were the ones that put me up on game on. And also the language of how not to get locked up. Like how you supposed to move in the escort business so they cannot lock you up. Stuff that you were supposed to say. You was not ever supposed to say that you were doing this for this. You cannot come out your mouth and say, "I am going to give you head for this amount of money." You cannot say that. And when a person is trying to force you to say it, it's because they're a cop and they're trying to record you saying it. So if you constantly hold to your guns, even if they're a cop, they will end up leaving because you're not saying you're going to give them this for this. That's the illegal part. They have to record you saying it. So if you saying, "Yeah, baby, I'll show you a good time for that $100," or you saying something about giving them a service for the money, that is, you gonna take your ass to jail. And the only time I got busted with my brother is because I was in a bind a financial bind and did not follow my rules. I was so in need of the money and I did not follow my rules. As soon as I didn't follow my rules, boom, they busted me and gave me a ticket for prostitution. And so for me, that was the lesson that they taught me. They was like, "You will never get busted if you move like this." And it's not worth it. Don't, if he get to trying to make you say, "Am I gonna get some head for this $200? Am I gonna get this? And are we gonna do that?" If he get to talking about it and trying to force you to say it, that's a motherfucking cop. And if it's not a cop, he too new. He too dumb and too slow to be fucking for you to be fucking with. So if he's not a cop and he's talking like that, get out of here. You too new, too green, and I don't want you come see me anyway. Learn the game. If you don't know the game, then stop calling me. And you could start, and another thing you could start doing, you could say shit like that. Like, yo, you sound like you're a cop. Why are you asking me to have sex for money? That's illegal, sir. Why are you asking me that? And a smart person would be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be talking like that. But you're right. And so you'd be like, sweetie, I don't provide that type of service. What is going on here? You can give all of the all of the things to pop them and get them in line. But if they keep pressuring you to try to get you to say it, then more than likely they're a cop. And you don't know how many times cops have called me after I done put them out of my house and called me and says, oh, we're gonna bust your ass. You're gonna stop doing the prostitution. We know what you're doing, but they couldn't get me because I didn't give them any I didn't do nothing with them. They hated it. But yes. All right, let's continue.
We relied on one another for that. We used one another for client references, confirming that the men who reached out to us were who they said they were. We acted as one another's safety contact, the person who receives information on where you are, whom you're with, and how long you should be there when we couldn't tell our friends and families what we did for a living. We shared which hotels were provider-friendly and which ones kept track of traffic in and out of a room. We used whisper networks to warn other girls about law enforcement stings, scammers, and predators to avoid. We had hoe brunches just to vent and fellowship with one another. Some of these women are still friends of mine. Some of them are still sex workers, keeping me abreast of how women are navigating an already delicate industry with a pandemic and the stricter rules in online advertising. These women gave me my education in sex work best practices. It's because of their wisdom that I never again hosted a client at my own place like I did with that first nerdy client. They taught me how to build my brand and market myself, which was super important as a plus-size provider, and how to retain clients and build a base of regulars. The secret sauce is to take the time to get to know your clients and invest in making them think that you would fuck them for free. We swap tricks on how to maximize our time with clients, prolong foreplay, and control their orgasm so they'll want to stay longer or spend more money. And get rid of the ones who were annoying. Set your phone alarm so that it sounds like your ringtone and fake an emergency. Makeup tips, period sex, Bitcoin, hoes taught me all of that. But most important, they taught me how to really step into my confidence and stand on a foundation of self-preservation and personal progress. Sex work is where I saw in real time so much of the Black queer, feminist, body, gender, and sexuality theory I had studied and acted in real life.
Yeah.
I really started to understand desirability politics as a product of access and socialization. For example, most of my clients were professional white men in their 40s and 50s. Their opportunities to engage with fat Black women at their Ivy League schools, their corporate jobs, or their mostly white neighborhoods were slim or none. I was able to deduce from their interactions with me that the reason there's a widely held belief that people aren't attracted to fat Black women is because fat Black women do not fit into the imagined normative lifestyle of these privileged men. We simply do not exist in their world. People engage with their desires only as much as their lives and communities allow them to. Even within our intimate relationships, many of us are performing gender, sexuality, and desire in the ways that are expected of us, not in ways that reflect the full spectrum of our sexual interests. Contrary to what people think about men who patronize sex workers, they're not desperate creeps who can't get sex anywhere else. They're men who want to have sex that they have to go somewhere else, literally and figuratively, to get. They're looking for specific experiences that meet their specific needs, experiences that allow them to explore those fringe corners of their desires. Providers offer them the space and chance to tap into those parts of their sexuality that they're not able to express in their everyday lives. We fill holes that would have gone untended to otherwise, holes that aren't always explicitly sexual. While sex work is often reduced to sucking and fucking, sex workers also do a ton of emotional and mental labor for clients.
Yes.
Desire, romance, and intimacy are holistic experiences and not skin deep. I've had clients who never even saw me fully nude because they were interested in an erotic experience that wasn't limited to penetration. Many of my clients simply wanted to relish a lack of control. Side note, I really miss being mean to white men for money. They need it now more than ever. Any cash pigs listening to this?
Period.
Holla at me, you piece of shit. Some of them were just too busy to commit to dating.
Period.
It was my job to get to know my clients, to understand what they needed, even when they didn't. I had to ensure that I was embodying a body positive lens to make room for clients with different body types and abilities. I had to be detail oriented and listen. I had to trust my gut. I learned for the first time how fulfilling it could be to act in the service of someone else. The better I got at this, the more fulfilling the work was for me. It probably sounds weird, but being a hoe pushed me to be a better person and a better partner in general. Every envelope full of cash was an affirmation of what I had to offer the world. Most important though, I understood that having romantic access to me is a privilege, a luxury even. Freed from the respectability politics that supported this line of thinking, I was able to rethink my own value in my dating life, which I'll talk more about in a later chapter. Yes, sex work is a threat to capitalism because of the financial autonomy it offers in a system that relies on disenfranchised folks as a labor force. But it also poses a threat to the established power dynamic that tends to work against Black femmes in romantic contexts. We are indoctrinated to think that our time, bodies, and energy are worth only as much as our partners say they are. We're taught that the only outcomes we should expect for sharing these parts of ourselves is the companionship of someone else. Hoes know better than that. We know that it takes real work to satisfy someone else's needs, work that has material value. When critics try to insult female rappers by comparing them to sex workers, like when during a Love and Hip Hop reunion episode, Peter Gunn said that if a woman wants to be treated to cash or gifts before agreeing to have sex, she's prostituting herself, they're underestimating the inherent power that sex workers possess, the power of self-determination. Self-determination. That's why new spitters like Sukiana lean into their hoism. That's why, despite these critiques, so many female rappers still insist that anyone who wants to fuck them is going to have to pay the tax. There are few things that make me feel as empowered as I do when I'm listening to a Black woman talk about how expensive her pussy is.
Would you be with a cop as a client, or is that too risky? It is not too risky. I have had many, many cops as clients. It's okay to be with a cop because they also know what not to ask you. Like a cop coming to see you, they're risking it just like you risking it. So a client who know the game ain't coming in asking you about what they getting for their money. They know what this is about. We know what we doing. And most of the time you done talked about what you do and don't do in your ad. And so you ain't gotta ask no questions. You come with my money, put the money on the table. You ain't even gotta hand it to me in my hand and get naked. And you get what I'm saying? It's just a certain level of directness. We ain't gotta do too much talking until the shit gets started. And once you get started, you know that this is not no cop, because if it was a sting, they will already be knocking on the door. Do you get what I'm saying? So I don't have many of cops, but a client, not a client, a cop that's trying to sting you is going to be true. You got to understand, they're trying to sting you so they can have evidence in court. You get what I'm saying? That this is the evidence. The evidence is they're recorded. They got their phone on. They're recording. Somebody is listening to them in there with you. And they have to get you to say that because they need the evidence to prove that you was prostituting in court. Do you see what I'm saying? So so two things I never did. I never go to no motherfucker's hotel, because if it's a cop, they will be recording inside the hotel. So you got to come to me. I'm not coming to you. Also, if I come to you, you're gonna come to if I come to you, you're going to be in like a 5-star, 4-star hotel, because those level of hotels are not going to have cop stings in them. So like if you go to a Days Inn, yeah, the cops can perform. The cops can have a hotel and afford to have a hotel on a cop's budget at the Days Inn, but they're not going to be at the Fairmont. They're not going to be at the fucking at the Conrad, or some high 5-star, 4-star hotel. They can't afford that. And the people who run the hotel are not letting them do stings at their hotel. And so, yeah, I'll come to see you if you had a 5-star. I'll come to see you if you had a 4-star. I think, yeah, the lowest I'm gonna go is like 4. But especially, I just know that the cops is not gonna be there. The cops is gonna be at the fucking Days Inn, the La Quinta, them, $50, $50, $50 a night hotel, Motel 6. They gonna be at that kind of stuff. So you won't go there. Um, so yeah, it's just rules that you got to follow because you know how the system works. And having cops as clients teach you how the system works. I remember I had a cop in Mississippi that I would see, and he would say, "Hey, save these numbers in your phone. These are the undercover cops. Save them in your phone. When they call, you know that they're trying to bust you." Because he was a fucking cop and he knew the numbers. And so anybody, they would call me and I would know that they were fucking cops trying to play, trying to sting me. Because he would let me know that they're busting everybody, not just me, but everybody. He was like, "So you gotta be careful here." So I would save the numbers in my phone because that's just what it was. So what else? What else? What else? What else? I'm texting my girl to get in here. Who is escorting in Tampa? Yeah, I don't know nothing about the escort business now because of SESTA and the rules around FOSTA and SESTA. It just has changed the game. I don't even know where the folks are advertising that no more. Where the folks advertising that? I know Eero still exists, right? But I know Craigslist doesn't, Backpage doesn't. Let me see. Yeah, that's still up. That's still up, baby. Eero said, "Baby, y'all not taking us down." Did they move to another country? I think that's what a lot of the websites did. They moved to another country. All the websites are based out of the UK. Yeah, so that's what it is. They own that bootleg site, Skip the Games. What is SESTA? SESTA is the law. Let me give you. Here you go. Give you some history about the laws. So, in general, to the excuse was to cut down sex trafficking and make it illegal to knowingly assist, facilitate, and support sex trafficking. And so what that means is online services would be getting implemented in these cases, in these sex trafficking cases, for allowing people to put ads and shit up. And so what they started doing when they made this law go into effect, it basically in 2000 and they started when it went into effect, it started it got signed into law in 2018. but they started like shopping it. I remember around 2009, 2008, 2009. It hadn't passed, but it started to be shopped around. And so the site started to do little different stuff to make them less liable. I think you can use a VIPN to bypass the country's restrictions. Yes, you can. So they moved their base out to the UK or other countries so they can not have to worry about it. And so so for example, Craigslist, they start making it start getting fucking weird and it was annoying. They start making it to where the community can flag each other. It used to didn't be like that. The community can flag each other. And so girls was flagging everybody. Everybody was flagging everybody. It was going down. So your ad, as soon as you put your ad up, that motherfucker is going down because girls is flagging it. It just was a shit show. Wasn't nobody making no fucking money. You had to put your ad up at a certain time of night when you thought people was sleeping. It was so annoying at that time for sex work. But yeah, they shut down a lot of sites because the owners were getting indicted in certain cases and blah 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 blah. So that just changed the game. And so people start using Bitcoin because they couldn't they couldn't accept credit cards. So they started using Bitcoins as payments and it just started to be weird. That's when it got really weird for me. Just for the idea of doing that. But yeah, I got out of the game in 09 because it started to be where you weren't making no fucking money. It just wasn't popping like it was. You can still have some good tricks, but it just wasn't popping in the way that it was when I first started. And so it started to not be worth it. And then at that time, I was in school and it was just a whole different game for me. So it just stopped being worth it. And so I got out uh formally. I still will turn a trick to this day, but formally they let OnlyFans pop off. OnlyFans started popping after the pandemic though. When people started losing jobs and the shit shut down, OnlyFans started popping then when people was needing a way to make money.
They might not have websites created to lure a certain clientele, but their Instagram accounts work just as well, and I'm sure the DMs are booming. It's important that I talk about my stint as a sex worker, a positive, autonomous experience that helped me stay afloat financially for a number of years before I had a viable career, because that's not the narrative we typically get about sex workers, especially Black women. The media wants you to believe that sex work is seedy. Themes of desperation, force, trafficking, and violence are recycled there, depicting a shadowy underground that snatches souls and never returns them. A lot of rappers want us to believe that sex work is sexy. Neither is the definitive truth, but it can be both. It doesn't matter if we're not hearing about the experiences of sex workers, good or bad, from those in the field. Sex work shouldn't be co-opted for shocking headlines or catchy bars. I've heard horror stories of providers being robbed and raped. Trans women who are pushed into survival sex work are at an even higher risk of violence. It cannot be understated how epidemics like gender-based violence, homophobia, transphobia, and addiction, just to name a few, collide with income inequality and lead women to pursue sex work. I also understand that there is a completely different sector of the industry in which women and girls are coerced into prostitution by other people. I'm particularly sensitive to this reality because a decade before I was making money as a sex worker, I was almost one of those girls. When I was 14, A close friend of the family, let's call him D, asked me if I was a virgin. We just pulled into a parking lot near the projects that operated as his stomping grounds. As we drove past crackheads and corner boys, D slowed the car down and turned 8-Ball and MJG's Mr. Big up to its maximum volume. He was clearly feeling himself as he drove a car that wasn't his through the narrow streets leading into one of the Chicago housing complexes that have since been torn down. But before he'd inquired about my sexual activity, he turned the car off and the radio all the way down. I knew this was not passing curiosity of an adult trying to offer support or guidance. It was a pitch. Before I could even answer, he continued with a spiel about how I could and should be getting money from these niggas if I was going to deal with them at all. D and I were spending more time together than usual, which is what led to this sly proposition in the car. He would sometimes try to impress me with gifts or stories about how much money he had. On other occasions, I would ride along with him on random trips. He didn't have a job, so they were indeed random.
That's the author.
But sometimes we would stop to hang out at the homes of his friends.
And that's her voice. She's the one who reading her own book.
He asked me in front of all of his old-ass cronies if I had brushed my teeth that day. It was a weird question, but before I could respond, he grabbed my face, pulled it close to his, and ran his tongue across my front teeth. I was disgusted and made that very clear as I pulled away. He just laughed and sent me back into another room, giving a knowing look to his friends. Even at that age, the idea of prostitution wasn't foreign to me. I knew that there were some women who were willing to have sex with men for money. I also knew there were pimps, men who made money off those women. These dynamics showed up in the music I listened to and some of the series and movies I watched. Pimp culture is also extremely prominent in the Midwest, especially in places like Chicago and Detroit. But whenever I witnessed this culture, it was explicitly named. Words like prostitution, hooker, and turning tricks seemed to draw a line in the sand that defined what hoeing was and was not. They were labels that identified a group of women who had been written off as shameful and amoral. D was giving me creep vibes for sure, but he hadn't used any of those terms or described those dynamics. I brushed him off after his speech in the car because by the time I was 14, I already felt a sense of ownership over my own sexuality. Involving D or any other adult in it just wasn't appealing to me. But it definitely wasn't because I realized exactly what he was up to. D was trying to turn me out, slowly but surely. With all of the gifts, the stories about how much money he supposedly had, the unsolicited questions and advice he had about my sex life, and the time he suddenly wanted us to spend together, D was grooming me. He already thought of himself as a pimp.
That's the book.
He just needed a woman at his behest to complete that fantasy. When he stuck his tongue into my mouth in front of those other men, invading my personal space and my body, he was trying to give them the impression that he had power over my body, even though he didn't. If he'd had his way, some of those same men would have paid him for a chance to do more than check my teeth. The only reason it stopped was because not long after these incidents, I went to live with my grandparents and D went to prison. I don't know how far things would have gone if there hadn't been physical distance put between us. I know hindsight is 20/20, but if I knew then what I know now, I would have bitten his fucking tongue off. When I hear news stories about underage girls being trafficked, I know exactly how easy it is. Had D been an older dude from the neighborhood whom I had a crush on, a neighbor I was creeping around with, or someone I felt closer to, I could have easily been turned out. If I had had a boyfriend who told me this was what he wanted me to do for him, I can see how my 14-year-old brain could have found ways to justify it. Had I been one of those 14-year-old girls who are treated like surrogate heads of their households and feel an obligation to make some money for their families and not just for a new purse, Dee's proposition could have sounded like music to my ears. While it may seem easy to identify pimps when they're dressed like Bishop Don Juan and hoes when their asses are jutting out from the sides of cars on the street, it looks different for young girls who get caught up in the game. It looks like an abusive boyfriend, expectations from older family members, or being a down-ass bitch riding for the rich older guy you're dating.
Clock. If you got a nigga that's home every day, not bringing no money in, you going to work or you turning tricks, and he home and he laying in your house in your bed eating your food, playing video games, you the trick, baby. You the client. You the trick. You the sugar daddy. The sugar mama. If he ain't bringing nothing to the table, You trick. And if he having you sleep with people for money, you getting pimped, baby. I just never been in that situation. I'm too arrogant, if I'm to be honest. My pride and my arrogance is too deep for me to be sitting around the house and letting the nigga do nothing. I can't do it. I can't get no nigga my money. Where they do that at? Not over here. I can't be. In order for me to give you some coins and you my man, you have to have already been giving me coins. You have to have already been proving yourself as a down ass provider dude. If you ain't did that, baby, you ain't getting no money from me at all. Ever. You just not.
These stories of exploitation, violence, and despondency are often used as justification for the criminalization of sex work. In case you're one of those people, I'm here to tell you why you're way off base. First and foremost, let's get on the same page that consensual sex work is not the same thing as sex trafficking. It's like the difference between consensual sex and rape. Sex work involves consenting parties negotiating the terms under which they engage in sex. Trafficked individuals cannot give consent because they're acting under the authoritarian rule of someone else. Trying to combat sex trafficking by criminalizing the entire sex trade is like trying to regulate sex in order to prevent rape. Industries like agriculture and domestic work are also hotspots for trafficking, but there haven't been any attempts to ban hiring migrant workers or live-in housekeepers. Those sectors are allowed to exist, and there are rules, laws, and task forces in place to help curb those who would take advantage of workers. The most present danger that sex workers navigate is law enforcement. We have to figure out ways to advertise, screen clients, and serve clients without drawing the attention of the police or walking into a sting. If crimes are committed against us while we're working, we put our own freedom at risk in the pursuit of justice. Dirty cops are among the predators we may encounter.
Period.
On top of all that, the economic consequences of entering the criminal justice system makes it more likely that we will have to continue to pursue sex work, which was the case for me after my arrest. Decriminalizing sex work would make it safer for sex workers to do their jobs and easier to fight trafficking. This hasn't happened because not only are we still tied to conservative attitudes about the circumstances under which people have sex, but also because people refuse to acknowledge that sex work is real work. The bottom line for all sex workers is the dollar. Sex work can be dangerous, but so can construction. People can exploit it like they can anything else. For many sex workers, they would be doing something else if they had the choice, and I think a bunch of Walmart employees would say the same thing. People are drawn to this underground economy in a system that doesn't provide nearly enough help or resources to those who need it most. Rather than address the issues that make sex work a viable option for so many, like a livable wage and reliable protection against gender-based violence and homophobia, we've continued to put an already vulnerable workforce even more at risk. And still, sex work is alive and well. It still offers women the opportunity for financial freedom and personal growth. The internet gave sex workers more than access to a global community and a means to express themselves and raise awareness. It also gave them even more ways to make money. Sex work is still forcing us to reconsider our assumptions about different bodies and forms of sexual expression. It's also still hiding in plain sight via the sex we have every day outside the official bounds of the industry. I am not suggesting that this is the only means of accomplishing any of the above, but it's a model that should be taken more seriously for sure. I'm not saying that everyone should go out and get their hoe credentials, but I don't think it's a terrible idea to consider how much hoe shit is already in you.
Bam. So that's the end. That's the end of the Sell It chapter. So, yeah, I think that for me, it's for how I think about sex work now. It is just a tool in my toolbox. It is a it is something is a tool in my toolbox. It's a tool that I can hustle and make some money real quick. It is a tool that I can use as a defense mechanism against a dude who I'm not for sure of his intentions. So let me give you an example. When I was younger, I'll hook up with a dude and this nigga selling me the sun, moon, and stars because he fine and I'm I'm looking for love and I'm trying to be classy and I'm trying to be da 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 da. Not classy, but I'm trying to be a good girl. And he's selling me the sun, moon, and stars, and I'm giving him something he can feel. I'm giving him something he can feel, baby. I'm cartwheeling, somersaulting, riding, mega knees riding. I'm doing all the stuff to make him feel good. All the stuff free. And I remember I'm getting out of this situation at the end when it's revealed that he ain't shit is a wet ass. And at that time, this is when I was young, y'all, not in my 20s, but like teenagers, well, early 20s. But definitely I remember I was hooking up with this dude named Dennis. And I remember this moment because it was just a trigger. Sometimes shit in my brain will just switch and I'll never think like I did before the switch. And this is one moment. So I met Dennis through my gay best friend Mario, and Dennis lived in my hood. He was he was maybe like 5 years younger. So I was like 26 and he was like 21. And so I met him through him, and when we saw each other, we were each other's type. Dennis was tall, chocolate, just he was like 6'3" and huge ass dick, and he was everything. And he came to see me, and we hooked up, and it was fire. I would literally have to masturbate when he left, all because I'm trying to keep this image of femininity. He knew my tea, but he wouldn't be doing nothing for me. Like he wouldn't be doing anything for my physical pleasure. Like I'm sucking his dick, he fucking me. Nothing about how, not saying that I didn't like getting fucked, but I'm not blessed like some of these other folks where they can get fucks and they nut. I ain't that person. My asshole ain't that. I done did it to people and I done seen people do it. But for me and my body, how my body is set up, I can't nut from somebody pounding my cakes. Does it feel cool? Does it feel love? Yes, I like it, but I am a verse girl. For me to nut, you have to engage with my penis. So I remember he done slayed my cookies all night long from 9 p.m. to 12 in the morning. Like stopping and starting. He done got multiple nuts. I done sucked it. I done sucked his piece so long because I'm protecting his dick from my teeth. It done my teeth done ate into my lips, and so my lips is all tender because I done been covering up my teeth so it's not scraping on his dick. That's how much I done sucked it. Sucking and fucking, sucking and fucking, sucking and fucking all night fucking long. And I didn't get nan one of a nut. And in that moment, when he left my house, I had to masturbate to get a nut. And I was like, I am never going to hook up with a dude without getting a nut after this. And from that moment, unless they were paying me, I'm not doing it. And so I would use money to make up for whether or not I'm going to get some pleasure or not. Or to make up for if this doesn't turn out how I want it to turn out. Like if If you're selling me the sun, moon, and stars like we might be in a relationship together and it doesn't work out because you just selling me the sun, moon, and stars because you're trying to fuck, once we fuck and you keep coming back just for sex, at least if I got some money through the situation, I got some of my rent paid. I got my light bills paid. I got something that I could show for it. What felt bad was when I didn't have nothing to show for it. If you're watching, make sure you thumbs up. What felt bad to me was that, man, I ain't got nothing to show for this. And so charging money became the defense mechanism for me. It made it okay. It's like, okay, well, at least I got some rent out of this. At least I got some bills out of this. I ain't just got a wet ass. That's when it was felt like, oh, I didn't get nothing. I didn't even get sexual pleasure out of this. It just was, my body was being used. And so sex work became a tool of a defense mechanism from that feeling, the feeling of being used, the feeling, even if somebody paying you, they're using you, but it's a transaction. It doesn't feel like fair exchange, ain't no robbery. If I say I want this and you want this and we do that don't feel like I'm being used. That feels like a transaction, like a fair transaction. I'm setting the terms, you meeting the terms, we do our thing. But if I think that this is going to be something else and it doesn't, then I feel like I done got played. So for me, it's the tool that I can use to be able to get what I want and not feel used. And then now, because I am, running my own business, working for orgs and da 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 da, I also I feel like sometimes, bitch, I'm bored. Sometimes I'll have one of my clients that I've been seeing for years. He like, yo, I'm by the Galleria. Yo, I see you in my city. Come holler at me. Can I come holler at you? I got some money for you. Da 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 da. I ain't doing nothing. Why wouldn't I take this money? So sometimes it's just, oh, ain't nothing going on. So why wouldn't he got some money for me? Why wouldn't I take the money? I'm single. I'm not doing nothing. Come bring me that $300. Come bring me that whatever you got in regards to what you're trying to do. Let's see, let's see where this goes. So that's how I use it now. Now back in the day, I ain't even talking to no nigga. He ain't talking about no money. When I was in the business of escorting, oh God, I ain't going on no dates. I ain't talking on no phone. I ain't doing nothing. You got some money for me, baby? It was a hustle. It was a nobody get no play. But that requires a lot of talking on the phone with clients and just having calls all hours of the night from tricks, and it just was it is a I remember one time I had stopped escorting in '09, and I think that probably like in 2000 and maybe like 15 or 16, I was like, oh, I'm traveling, I know I'm going to this city, let me put up an ad real quick to see if I can make some money while I'm here. Even though I hadn't been an escort, let me see if I can make some money. Baby, do you know how I was over it taking them calls? Just the idea of picking up the phone and negotiate, talking about where you located, what's your rates, how many roses. Ugh. Oh my God. I was so annoyed by the conversation. I was so annoyed by, you know, just everything that was happening. I was like, oh, I done grew out of this. Cause I used to be able to do it with so much ease. It used to be like nothing for me to have a conversation with somebody. I could be cooking, I could be doing so much, but I was so annoyed in this moment. I was like, oh, I done got rusty because I'm annoyed by the conversation. And I'm getting an attitude with these motherfuckers because they're offering money that ain't good, or they're asking me questions over and over, which is so common, but I just didn't have the patience for it like I used to. But yeah. But all right. That is Cicely Bowen's her book called Bad Fat Black Girl, Notes from a Trap Feminist. Um, do y'all want to do another chapter or what? Are y'all ready to go? Because it is 11. I don't think we're going to finish this chapter in before 12. All right. So we'll go to. All right. Because her chapters aren't really, really long. All right. So we'll go to the next one, which is called
Chapter 7.
N-
Not Straight.
Not Straight.
Came with my niggas and left with a baddie. Dream doll. My mama took me to my first Pride celebration when I was around 15, but she refused to tell me what it was. We're going to a picnic, she said, exasperated, whenever I asked her about the day's plans. I knew she was on some kind of bullshit, but I couldn't put my finger on what was going on. We weren't the kind of mama-daughter duo that would just go on random picnics to spend quality time together. But she was putting on makeup and had an outfit picked out for the occasion. I was expected to get cute too. When I pressed her about who was hosting this event or what the theme of it might be, it could have been a birthday party, a family reunion, or an outdoor work potluck for all I knew. She doubled down on the fact that it was just a picnic. This was still a few years before social media and the internet were a major part of our lives. So I had no clue that it was Pride weekend in Chicago. I just had to ride along wherever my mama took me and take in the day's events as they unfolded. The picnic was at a beach park on the south side, and I realized almost immediately why my mama was being so weird about the shit. First of all, picnic was clearly an understatement. There were hundreds of people in attendance, and rainbow-colored paraphernalia was everywhere. Smoke from portable barbecue grills, blunts, and Newport cigarettes rose above the sea of moving black bodies. Several speaker systems and boomboxes competed for dominance over a crowd that was eating, drinking, talking, laughing, dancing, and maneuvering from one part of the grassy area to another. Despite the colorful rainbows, I noticed pretty quickly that there weren't a lot of other kids there. There were hardly any men there either. At least there weren't a lot of people I would have labeled as men. Knowing what I know now about gender, I recognize that my teen interpretation of anyone's gender wasn't necessarily aligned with their actual gender identity. I tried not to stare at the few people I read as men who strutted by me in jeans with pockets cut completely out, exposing their butt cheeks, or with full faces of makeup and glitter cascading down their exposed chests, past chains that connected their nipple rings. The majority of the partygoers were women, and many of them were masculine-presenting studs.
Yes.
One of those studs was my mama's girlfriend, whom I'd already met. As much as I would love to brag that my mama was being proactive about immersing me in queer culture or exposing me to different sides of life, I don't think it was that deep. She actually had no clue how I would react to that environment, but she wanted to kick it with her boo and their friends. This wasn't an event for me, which is why she didn't want to tell me where we were going. My mama never sat me down and had a conversation with me about her sexuality. There just came a time after she and my dad broke up when she dated women, specifically studs. I almost respect her more for taking this approach. There would have been nothing I could do or say to change how she felt about the people she loved and fucked. It was just something I had to accept. More homophobes need that energy, but I digress. I guess my mama assumed that if I didn't speak out in protest of her lifestyle, there was nothing to talk about. And she was right. I would just have to deal. But I never did have a problem with the fact that my mom liked women. Any issues I've ever had with the people my mama dated had nothing to do with their gender identity or sexual orientation. She would get no such protest from me at that first Pride either. Even though it was for grown folks, I was excited by the outlandish outfits and pure joy surrounding me. Being around so many queer people wasn't disgusting or offensive to me, but I was scared that I would be perceived as one of them. At that age, I thought I was straight. And in case you haven't heard, heterosexuality is insecure and extremely fragile. It needs to be performed and defended at all costs. It's basically the short cis man of the sexuality spectrum. Add that to my inflated teenage ego, and my primary source of discomfort was that someone would think that I too was family. I didn't have a problem with queer people, but I was not ready to be called one. I wondered how shooting the shit at Pride might somehow stain my record. This fear kicked into overdrive when two of my male classmates recognized me in the crowd. I loudly exaggerated the fact that my mama had dragged me to the event with her friends, and they truly didn't give two fucks about it. They offered a few more niceties and went right on their way.
So, Shonette said it's a lifestyle. Is it really a lifestyle though? Let me give some nuance to that. When queer people buck up against the idea of it being a lifestyle, it is usually when against us a cishet motherfucker trying to make it seem like this is not a this is not a this is a choice that you made. It is not something that's natural to you. It is something that is not a God-given quality about yourself. And so we in the 90s or in the early 2000s, we would buck up against the idea of it being a lifestyle because you're making it seem like this was a choice that we made to be a part of. And that's why the lifestyle thing felt uncomfortable to me. And I'm just speaking from my own analysis. You might hear other responses from queer people in another way. But if we kind of conflate, I know these are two different words, but entertain me for a little bit. If we conflate culture and lifestyle, like we know they're two different words, but if we kind of replace the question with culture, I do feel like queer folks have a specific culture that could be looked at as a lifestyle of living. Like it in the same way black people have a culture. And if you fuck with black people the long way, there is just certain things that is going to be a part of your culture of how we do stuff. Now, this doesn't mean that there are not outliers, but the culture is what we collectively share in our experience. And it may not be every single aspect of the culture. Do you see what I'm saying? It may not be every single thing. Every single black person don't like soul food for Thanksgiving. Some family might be doing something else. But in general, there are some staples in how we celebrate Thanksgiving and what we cook and how we cook it and da da da. Maybe some nuances, but in general, I can come to your house and know that I'm in a black person's house based on what I see in it. I know that I'm at a black party based on the music, based on um how people are dressed. You see what I'm saying? That it's not necessarily a black lifestyle, but how we live and the style that we live it can be informed by our culture. And so to me, there is some queer lifestyle things that is associated with my queer life that is not associated with my black life. So, like I said, we are not a monolith, but it's very few for me, it's very few black trans women or black queer people that don't know the culture of tipping a drag queen $1 or two. Like if you at a club and there's a drag show going on, most of us know that the tradition in our culture is to give a drag queen $1. You can say $1 or two or whatever. If she performing and kicking and bucking, how many of you, if you are queer, have been in a situation like that where the drag is a part? There's a drag queen performing, and it could be at the club, it could be at a bar, it could be wherever, but there's a drag queen performance, and the tradition is to give them $1, right? Am I have if you're queer, have you been in that experience? It may not necessarily be a drag show, but there's a drag performance happening. And we know, based on the culture of what we know that you give $1 to a drag queen. That's not something a black person would have experienced. But as a queer black person, and probably some white ones too, most of us, because drag is such a staple in our lifestyle, in our culture, we know how to respond to drag queens. We know what's the typical thing to do, and it's give them $1. Here you go. Hand fold it up, and hand it to them. That's something that we just know to do because we have been in this lifestyle, we have been in this culture, and drag is a part of the culture. It is no surprise to me when that RuPaul Drag Race blew up in the way that it did, because that was just waiting to happen. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just, yeah, that's just a part of our culture. If you go to a strictly lesbian club, like say you go to a lesbian club that is where the lesbians go, there is an osmosis between the strip club and the lesbian club. I've been to all cities around the country, and if you go to a lesbian club, there is an osmosis, an overlap, a Venn diagram where those things connect. There's a honey, I done seen a bunch of strippers in Magic City go directly, when they done making their money, go directly to the gay club. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a connection between the lesbian club and the strip club. There's a connection. The cisgender women strip club. There's a connection. That is a part of our culture. Is that a part of y'all culture? I've been all around the world, and I've seen this all in every city. So y'all tell me, have y'all experienced? Now, if you've never been to a lesbian club, you may not understand that. But every lesbian club I know, there's some overlap between the strip club and them. Trying to think of other cultural things, like things that are unique to queer. Can y'all give me some examples too? That is like, you can go to Atlanta, you can go to New York, you can go to San Francisco, and these cultural things are just lifestyle. Cultural things are just a part of all of our culture. There might be some nuances in different cities, but there's certain things like drag. Drag is one. It's just certain examples. And so I think of it as, I think sometimes people conflate that kind of culture and that lifestyle. And when somebody is trying to use lifestyle as in a negative, which she is not, we got to buck up against that. This is not some lifestyle we chose. Because usually they're saying something like, oh, you chose that lifestyle. Get the fuck out of here. So, yeah, I think sometimes it's a cultural conflation.
In fact, I was so busy deflecting that I hardly noticed what a hurry they seemed to be in to get away from me. And I didn't even think to ask them what they were doing there. Attending Pride for the first time helped me begin to understand there was such a thing as a queer community. It normalized being queer in a major way for me. I had definitely seen gay people before this moment. There was obviously my mama and her partners. There was a flamboyantly gay man I occasionally ran into at the corner store. There was a fine-ass stud I noticed playing basketball with guys at a park. I've had gay classmates consistently since the 7th grade. But I thought of all these people as isolated entities. Gay people were talked about in only one of two ways back in those days. They were either mentioned in hushed tones and whispers by straight people, or scandalously caricatured on media like The Jerry Springer Show and The Jenny Jones Show. They certainly weren't treated with dignity or respect, or welcomed as members of the community. So it was easy to dismiss them and their lifestyle as one-off exceptions to the laws of physical attraction. However, the sheer number of Black queer women at Pride proved it was highly unlikely to be as uncommon or underground as I had thought. The picnic was just a few minutes' drive from the hood. These Black folks hadn't been bussed in from other parts of town. They were from these very same neighborhoods. Perhaps they weren't dressed in the same outfits they would wear to school or work, but they were flexing no less. I made it a point after my first ever Pride to pay even closer attention to the Black folks I witnessed expanding the norms of gender and sexuality beyond binaries. I wondered who I may have overlooked, how many queer folks I was living amongst I just couldn't read or clock. I left Pride knowing without a doubt that there were already gays in the track. There still are.
Period.
The advent of raunchy female rap in the late 90s saw women playing with themes of lesbianism and bisexuality in their records. Artists like Queen Latifah, The Brat, and Missy Elliott use their personal style and aesthetics to sidestep the constraints of the gender binary without ever touching on their own queerness. That has given way to rappers like Dream Doll, who are even more explicit about their sexcapades with women and sleeping with people's wives. When Young M.A. dominated the charts for months after she dropped Ooh, straight men scratched their heads, trying to figure out how she could be getting deep-throated. While I would never seek to minimize the impact of queer Black women in hip-hop, I think the crown jewel of radical representation in the game these days has been femme gay rappers. Take Saucy Santana, the ultra femme rapper from Tallahassee, as an example. A makeup artist, internet sensation, and close friend of City Girls Young Miami, Santana helped set my entire summer 2020 mood with the release of his album, Pretty Little Gangsta. In skin-tight dresses and with fully contoured cheekbones on top of a moisturized beard, he shakes ass while rapping about walking men like dogs and being a material girl. Coming up behind him is teenage sensation Kid Ken from Chicago. He easily gives Barbie's Ken doll a run for his money, with perfectly contoured eyebrows and a well-kept fade that is often dyed different colors of the rainbow. Ken raps with a cadence and drawl similar to Queen Key, bragging about taking people's boyfriends and being who he is without consequence. Both of them have cult followings because they play on themes similar to those that have made female rap so seductive for generations of Black women. Empowerment, confidence, pride, and powerful femininity. They're securing bags and deals in the process. We have come a long way from the Freaky Boys going viral on YouTube back in 2010 for putting their spin on Gucci Mane's Freaky Girl. The veil has also been lifted on the presence of queer folks behind the scenes in hip-hop. Tokyo Stylz, Arrogant Tay, Alonzo Arnold, and Jonathan Wright are part of an elite squad of wig slayers. None of them are on the cis heterosexual end of the gender spectrum. Their clientele and friend list includes female rappers, strippers, and other industry women. A similar task force dominates fashion, with figures like Law Roach, Shane Justin, E.J. King, and Todd White. This says nothing of the queer photographers, writers, and editors who also help shape how trap culture is defined. Trap culture's claim on heterosexuality has never been as strong as its cis men have tried to make it seem. The gender bending and queer signaling in trap culture is stronger than ever, even among its cis straight men. The queer vibes were strong during Young Thug's creatively androgynous phase. It included a full editorial photo shoot with a dress and a tutu, and his practice of happily referring to his homeboys as lover and bae. Atlanta rapper Gunna didn't think twice about proudly rocking a big-ass Chanel purse to carry thousands of dollars in cash and a cell phone. That shoulder shimmy Lil Uzi Vert is known for always gives me hey girl energy. Federal informant Tekashi 6ix9ine is a client of Jonathan right now. Upon his release from prison, he had a full lace wig installed in rainbow colors. For comedy's sake, Lil Yachty has no problem dressing like Oprah, painting his nails, and flat ironing his hair. Even as these men uphold heterosexuality, they're pushing against the rigidity of masculinity in ways they don't even realize. Even the parts of trap culture that are supposed to fall within the boundaries of heterosexuality are actual performances of a version of sexuality that falls outside westernized heterosexuality. Professor LaMonda Horton Stallings is the one who put me onto this in her quintessential article, Hip Hop and the Black Ratchet Imagination. She looked specifically at the place of strip clubs in the creative lexicon of hip hop, which was an excellent focal point. We have strip club anthems, strip clubs as the site to test new trap music, strippers as prototypes for Black women's bodies, and strip clubs as spaces of sexual desire. I would add that I don't think it's a surprising development that strip club patronage is now an expression of wealth and success for both men and women in the industry. Horton Stallings pointed out that the dynamics between patrons and dancers are actually way off script for westernized sexual narratives, and we know it. We may not name it as such because we've reduced queerness itself to a set of specific sex acts, but throwing money with your homeboys in a crowded room to see women dance in a way that is unique to Black people is definitely queer. This
clock. I don't want her to get too far from us, from the tea she just clocked. So, thank you. Let me did I show you my jacket? This is what I wore to the meeting today. Hold on, let me show you my jacket. I love it. But clock what she's talking about. Remember, I told you I wanted that kind of hour that that Balenciaga hourglass blazer, but I couldn't afford it because it was like $5,000. I got this, and it does not the exact same thing, but it is so fire. And it's like a let me see if I can get it. It's like so fucking dope. Cause it goes in, I can button it up and it gives like a hip thingy where it just comes in on this part. And it's so motherfucking cute. I just really fucking love this fucking jacket. It is so like it just does what I needed to do. But it's pretty new. I need to figure out how to. Ooh. It's like it comes in, it gives you the little snatched in your waist, and it's tight all around the waist, so it just gives you this sickening thing. I just fucking love this jacket. It's just so fire. And it comes with these things. So you can have it plain like this. Da, 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 da. I can button this up on my titties. It comes like regular buttons, but it also comes with these, which are button covers. And you can put them on top of the button. And it gives it like this gold embellishment. And they send you like 4 of these. It's so fire. I love it. Anyway, so back to the conversation. um, the is this a South Park tie? No, I got this. I wish it was a South Park tie. I love it. I would have loved that. um, I got this at a thrift store, and it has just some white people on it, just some pictures of white people. But what I do is I have this. You know, because I think art is fashion. And I have this. This is Anita Baker. It is a enamel hard pen. And in the sea of these white people, I take Anita and pin her through on top of them. Use these little backing things to put on it because she's an enamel pen. And put Anita right in the middle, honey, making her the big focal point, the black woman in the middle of them white people. And you know, it's an artistic vision, baby. The black woman comes on top, honey. So that's what I do. But I love this pattern. I really, really love this pattern because I have let me show y'all this. Y'all done got me into the fashion. Um, this right here. I found this dress. This is so sexy. It is sheer and it's like open. It's open here. Your titties be out. You can't really. It looks better on because off the rack it looks very matronly. It be because of the tailoring. It's fit to your body and it's sexy. Your titties out in the middle like a keyhole. It's sexy and fire. And it's like a almost like pleated. But if you zoom in on it, it is just like this is some people faces. This print, look, it is. Let me go with the arm. It's people with glasses on it. Do you see them? Like you see her glasses? It's a lady with different blazers on and boots. Like Miss Thing got like right here, she got a navy blazer, black glasses, and red boots. Right here, she's green blazer and brown boots with the glasses. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a dope ass pattern once you get into it. And I was like, oh, I love that. And she is so cute. But she is, but honey, she real sheer. You can see through her. I wear black bra, black panties with it, but she's sexy. I love it. I'll put you up later. Anyway, a bunch of Anna Winters look alike. Exactly. That's exactly what she looked like. Except Anna don't be having her thighs out. But yes, I love this fucking dress. It's so sickening. So I thought it matched this where I could put these together just because I like to. So imagine me putting these together as mixed prints. And while they're similar, they're different enough for you to clock the difference. You see what I'm saying? Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Anyway, I want you to clock what she was saying. She was talking about how the dudes who are out now as rappers doing all this queer ass shit, this Prince like shit, this kind of gender bending shit, while still holding on to heterosexuality. It is people like La Roach, people like Prince, people, and I said La Roach because La Roach is a current fashion icon who is, who is moving and shaking in the fashion industry. And I talk about Prince, and of course there's people before them. There's people before them, but we paved the way for them to be as openly queer, doing this queer shit, because black men artists could not do what they're doing now in the 90s without being shunned. There was a gangsta toxic masculinity that just was the standard. And they couldn't do what they're doing. The freedom, and one thing that I hate, I want them to put some respect on our name, because the freedom that they have now, we laid the foundation for them niggas to be free. Them straight niggas. How they out here in 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 fly ass clothes and gender bending and being more free and being more confident about who they are. That's shit that we laid the foundation down. Queer people laid the foundation down for them to do. And I don't think we get enough credit for that shit. Y'all out here with hair. Y'all out here in gowns. Y'all out here free to be what you want to be. Still getting pussy, and it's not ruining your career. Because we laid we took the jabs, we took the hits.
The same is true of shaking ass for money in the first place, which inspires that kind of voyeurism. But trap culture thrives by giving a middle finger to these conservative ideals that require sexual purity for upstanding citizen status. Name me a trap song about a private one-on-one sexual encounter between a married man and woman. I'll wait. With every track, artists find new ways to revel in the pleasures of casual sex, transactional sex, communal sex, and kinky sex. Horton Stallings argued that the creative expression of these kinds of desires is actually a performance of failure. Failure to fully assimilate. Failure to accept rules about how we should be fucking. Rules that also uphold heterosexuality. Even if trap culture doesn't actively promote this failure to adhere, it is constantly performing it in different ways. When Black people see gay characters on television and assume there's some kind of gay agenda being used to influence the masses, I call bullshit. When they argue that treating queer people with humanity, friendliness, and courtesy is a struggle because there were never this many queer folks before, I call bullshit. When grown-ass men and women shrink at the very mention of queer people or queer issues, I call bullshit. I side-eye every last one of those hashtag Black Love Instagram pages that preach unity and community, but don't feature any queer or non-binary couples. Trans women are being murdered by cishet men who know them and know that they are trans. Black queer kids are being kicked out of their homes by their Black parents and Black relatives.
Period.
We see Black queer and trans folks. We know Black queer and trans folks. We make a choice about how we treat them. And the unfortunate reality is that as more of them express themselves online, see themselves represented in media, and find community with one another, they are sometimes just being met with more violence. We want them to think they don't belong, but queerness is not foreign to Black culture. The real tea is that our backward allegiance to heterosexuality is actually a function of white supremacy.
Boom.
Tea.
Come on.
The LGBTQ community popularized the phrase spill the tea, which means to share the gossip, news, and or information. That rigid masculinity Black cis men are supposed to embody is one half of a gender binary set up to uphold the moral superiority of our colonizers. It supports an equally rigid nuclear family model that leaves little room for communal living and support of one another. Families that break off into insular units are modeled after our society of individuals who fall into different groups of classes of people, but aren't required to support other people within those groups. People are worried about the gay agenda when an imperialist agenda pushed us into straight gay man-woman binaries that were never meant for us in our communities in the first place.
Period.
Our own internalized anti-Blackness has led us to believe that Black excellence comes only in the form of heterosexual marriage, kids, and wealth building. Because our survival as Black folks in westernized culture often depends on our ability and willingness to succeed under these moral codes, we've embraced those heteronormative binary rules and incorrectly processed them as part of some natural order. But sexuality exists on a spectrum, and there is nothing natural about the compulsive heterosexuality we impose on ourselves and others, which is exactly why hip-hop, especially trap culture, has low-key rebelled against it. Hip-hop and the Black ratchet imagination was an...
So I wanted to talk about that because we have been exploring the queer history of the United States, and I hope that in our live talks in the other book that what is being conveyed is how they were setting up the rules around how we are supposed to live as people in the culture of America. And so it was rooted in a white supremacist, patriarchal, imperialist capitalism. Shout out to Bell Hooks for that language, that collective language. It was set up to be that. And so, as she just said, and a lot of times our success in this world, in this country, was predicated on how well we were able to assimilate to the master narrative, assimilate into the higher culture, into the white culture, because racism, bad science, all was used as a distraction to me and other people. Toni Morrison talks about this, racism being that kind of distraction where instead of us kind of growing and being ourselves, we are in constant relation to that narrative, that negative narrative about us. We are in constant relation to how can we prove that we are human? How can we prove that we are civilized? How can we prove that we can be just as good? How can we prove it? And so our life and life choices revolve around the idea of proving that I got to get a nice house so I can prove that I can get up out the hood, or that I don't even, I got to go and get this education because I can prove that all Black people aren't dumb. There's a reason why Black women are the most educated in this country, the most highly educated in this country. There's a reason why that balance has been how this came to be, because we at one point we had the least amount of access to education. That's why when Phyllis Whitley, slave turned poet, that's why when she was writing her poetry, when that white woman was teaching her how to read and write and da 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 illegally, we were the only race of people in this country who it was illegal to teach us how to read and write. When she did learn how to read and write and became a poet, they literally sent investigators to see if she actually wrote her poetry, to see if she was actually able to do it. Because the anti-Black science was so deep that they was like, oh no, she couldn't have possibly wrote this. Phyllis Whitley. And so now she's been, instead of being reveled as this amazing poet and writer, they're wasting time by trying to prove that her Blackness wasn't a barrier. You see what I'm saying? So instead of her getting it being about her actual art, it's about her just being Black and being able to do it. Do you see what I'm saying? You see the difference? It's not about her art, her artistry and her writing. It's about her being oh my God, the reason why we know Phyllis Whitley is because she was a slave who was able to write poetry and write. That's why. During a time that they said Black people couldn't do that. And so sometimes our lives and our success and our survival was based on being able to live the status quo without even examining, is that what we really want? Does that give room to people who are outside of that? Does it give room to queer people to exist outside of that narrative about husband, wife, kid, and a dog, white picket fence? What if you don't want that? As a woman, what if you don't want that? As a queer person, what if you don't want that? As a little boy, a little girl who is wanting to totally flip your gender, what if you don't want that? You don't fit. So therefore, at some point, you wouldn't have been able to survive. And all of our advancements had led us to these wins, where now Black women are one of the most highly educated group in this country. Because we were busy proving that, oh, we can be educated and we can have degrees. To buck up against the master narrative that we are just welfare queens living off the government. Am I making sense? Am I making those connections? Because I want you to understand why. And it's not that that's not a positive thing to be educated and get degrees. That's a positive thing. So it's not a negative outcome, but you can see why it was important for us to do and how that outcome was based on those kind of negative stereotypes. But yeah, let's go.
Absolute game changer for me when I was piecing together how queerness was also part of trap feminism. I knew that its scope went beyond hip hop's historical homophobia and exclusion of queer people. It also wasn't enough to simply document emerging queer artists as examples of burgeoning representation and progress. This framework of failure in queerness offered me room to look deeper at sex work, marginalized bodies, and lawlessness. I was already interested in trap culture as a critique and resistance against Western morality and hierarchies. So Horton Stallings' queer reading helped me deconstruct and decenter heterosexuality as foundational to it. As a cisgender femme, I've experimented with several different labels around my sexual orientation. First, I simply identified as not straight. But that's like identifying as not white. It doesn't illustrate what you actually are and places whiteness as the baseline to which everything else is compared. It was important to me to decenter heterosexuality when figuring out how to define myself. Bisexual truly wasn't broad enough for me, even though I do identify with a lot of the struggles they face around erasure and mistrust, both inside and outside the queer community. Pansexual ultimately felt too pretentious and seemed to invite deep theoretical conversations, even when I wasn't trying to have them. Anytime I found myself having to explain it to someone, I felt like one of those people who put sapiosexual in their Tinder bio. At the time of this writing, queer works the best for me. But Not Str8 will always have a place in my heart because that defined what set me on my journey. Sure, I'd been playing house across the gender spectrum since I was little. But I had no social or cultural scripts, no points of reference for how to process my attraction to girls, let alone date them. As I mentioned, there wasn't much acknowledgement of queer relationships, let alone narratives that normalize queer attraction. I feel like I've been indoctrinated to like boys since I was extremely young, something that is true for a lot of Black women. From the fairy tales we read and watched to the obsession with whose mom was still with their dads. The bottom line was that being romantically tethered to a boy defined what it meant to be a girl. By the time I was 10 years old, the pursuit of male attention was so ingrained in the psyches of my friends and I that it felt like a sport. We'd chat endlessly about which boy was the cutest, who liked whom, if the feelings were reciprocated, and how to act on those feelings. This was our version of an NCAA bracket. The game just got more intense as we grew older, had more freedom, had stronger personalities, and sex was thrown into the mix. But at every stage of development, we all were expected to play and keep up with the rules as best we could. We didn't have coaches or captains, just an unofficial rule book that outlined how we were supposed to look, feel, act, and be in order to win. Online, there's a growing subculture of Black women who are invested in reconnecting with their feminine energy and leveling up. They meet at the place where dating coaching and Black entrepreneurship intersect online. Leveling up is synonymous with being more attractive to would-be suitors, and part of leveling up involves nailing a certain aesthetic. It's not uncommon for dating coaches to not only offer tips for how to meet better quality men, but also offer advice on how to look the part. From the way they wear their hair, to their home decor, the way they speak, and their interest in topics like financial literacy. The process is supposed to help them become women of substance. At the surface, this isn't the worst thing in the world. I too think you're a badder bitch when you look good and have your coin together.
I wanted to put this book. She keeps mentioning Horton Stalling, Funk the Erotic by LaMonda Horton Stalling. That is the book that if you are a reader, that it is called The Trans Aesthetic and Black Sexual Cultures. Check that out. It's a really, really good book about Black erotica.
I love to see Black women leveled up. But I definitely peep how this process is often about moving further away from any traits associated with being too ghetto or hood and equated with some idealized version of femininity. I have noticed how some of these hurdles outlined in this version of the same rulebook are harder to overcome for some Black women because of their education, class background, physical abilities, or body type. As a fat Black girl, the game was never meant to work in my favor. Still, I desperately wanted to play and benefit from the privileges that came from winning at it. I took advantage of every opportunity to be in the presence of boys, and I let my walk and my voice change when I was. The decision between wearing my hair in a wrap or slicking it down into a side ponytail with some black gel often came down to what I thought looked more feminine. But most notably, I ignored my attraction to people who weren't men. Even when I found women and other gender nonconforming people to be more interesting and alluring, I never knew what was supposed to happen next. I didn't know how to start the conversation with the rest of the people in my life. Dressing up for the male gaze was easy. So I kept those other desires shelved and my head in the hetero game. But I couldn't shake the hyper-awareness that there was very little room for me on the board. I noticed how much easier it was for some of my homegirls to thrive. Navigating the dating landscape just came natural to them, whereas it was a source of frustration and resistance for me. This difference between them and me was palpable. It marked my earliest moments of identifying as other. The moment I became sexually active, I came up against the stigma associated with sexuality in fat Black bodies. Like shaking ass for money or throwing money to see it, attraction to fat girls has always been considered abnormal and a snub to those Western sexual scripts. Even now, the fact that my sex life has been so diverse and robust is sometimes mind-blowing to people. They react to this information as if I've outed myself as someone who fucks outside the realm of acceptability. In other words, way before I was having sex and relationships with people who were not cisgender men, I was queer. In high school, having a bunch of close friends who were both embracing and struggling with their sexualities finally made me comfortable enough to even talk about also liking girls. I was slowly starting to put it together that if I didn't have to be hourglass shaped, super respectable, or sexually pure to be a baddie. I also didn't have to be straight. But I was straddling the fence, still clinging to my heterosexuality by playing up the fact that lesbianism was being fetishized by men. This was the era when young Dro announced to the world that his girl got a girlfriend. I was still fucking cis niggas, but I hadn't pursued or been pursued by any women. I wouldn't date or sleep with a woman until college, and I have AOL Instant Messenger for AIM to thank for that. Before we had our pick of social media outlets, and Facebook wasn't the shady enigma that it is today, AIM was that girl. It was an especially useful platform for a college student who was always on her laptop anyway. During my sophomore year of college, I was using it primarily to keep in touch with one particular friend from high school. We'd known each other for a really long time, and she had come out to me in class via one of the many handwritten letters we exchanged. Attention Gen Z listeners, handwritten notes were once the primary means of communication amongst high schoolers. Even if some of us had cell phones, our network providers charged us extra for each text, and our parents could see them. So to ensure our privacy, we would write letters and fold them into unique designs before passing them along.
Period.
She'd admitted that the mysterious guy from her waitressing job whom she'd been dating was actually a girl. In hindsight, that's such a classic Libra thing, building someone's trust while also lying to them. But I was supportive, even if I was a little caught off guard. We kept sharing notes, even more so now that the truth was out, and remained friends. One day, as we chatted from different universities hundreds of miles away from each other, I had the sudden realization that Libra Bay was flirting with me. I was flattered, so I flirted back. For months, we carried on like this over AIM, falling deeper for each other as time went on. Because we lived in different cities, we only got to see each other a couple of times a year when we were both in town for the holidays. I would usually hang out with her and her family at their house, or we'd all go to the movies or the bowling alley. But no one knew the nature of our relationship. To date, it's the most wholesome situationship I've ever been in. The most we ever did was phone bone and kiss deeply in the car. Other than that, she'd sneak and hold my hand in the movies or privately graze my back when she knew no one was watching. Her family was super religious and she was deeply closeted. So we hung out together under the guise of being friends and never committed to actually being together. But we fantasized about it a lot. We carried on in that precarious what are we phase for about 6 years on and off. During our high periods, we spoke every single day, sharing I love yous and talking about the partners we would be to each other if things were different. If she reconciled her sexuality and her faith, if we lived in the same city or state, once we both got our shit together. There's no doubt in my mind that we had deep feelings for each other. I can say for sure that I was deeply in love with her. But Libra Bay was also full of shit. And after a while, it became clear to me that she had no intention of seeing any of those promises to fruition. And not just because she wasn't out to her family. We had different values in politics. Because of her upbringing, she was surprisingly conservative, at times making me feel like I was dating a gay Republican. Even though we were never monogamous, one thing about me is we can't even start to have a conversation about me putting my pussy on ice if we're not in a committed relationship. Period. I'll explain why in the relationship chapter. And we talked about other people she dated. She didn't like the idea of me fucking and dating other people. She hated that I was doing sex work. She was also low-key fatphobic. I figured that last part out later when I realized she was having plenty of sex with some of the other girls she dated, none of whom were fat, but not me. It was never going to work out between Libra Bay and me. It was an emotional affair that never materialized in any real way. One time a homegirl straight up asked me, did she really exist? Because none of my friends who didn't already know her from our high school had actually met her. Over the course of our time together, there was never any effort put forth to visit or fly me to her. Still, she was a come up from all of the raggedy niggas I was fucking with over the course of the years when we talked. She was the first person to take me on a date. She helped me out with money when I needed it. She helped me realize how I deserved and wanted to be treated by partners, and I'll always be grateful to her for that. But she also taught me my first lesson in not dating people who aren't out. Libra Bay cussed me out and blocked me when I told her that I'd met Violet, the person who would become my first real girlfriend. They actually had quite a bit in common. They were both fine as hell. They both had strong faith-based backgrounds, and neither of them lived in the same city as me. But they were different in one super important aspect. Violet didn't have any reservations about us or our relationship. We dated publicly and spent meaningful time together. We had mutual friends, and I loved when we all kicked it because it gave me an opportunity to get to know Violet's character. She wasn't just letting me see one side of her because she was my secret lover. I could vouch for her sincerity and integrity, and I never had doubts about how she felt about me.
I want y'all to listen. This is very trans-coded. Are y'all clocking that? One of the things that, as I became friends with plus-size women, with analysis, not just trauma response, I started to have deeper conversations with them about desirability as I got older, and how men navigated them was such a reflection on how they were being that men were navigating me. And I didn't realize that the first time that I experienced a situation like that was in high school. There was this guy who was chasing me and chasing this fat girl named Brandy. So that's the first time I see it, but I just didn't make the connection because I was too fat phobic to make the connection. I was too arrogant in how I was examining the scenario. I was examining the scenario as he's with this fat girl. How can you be with this fat girl and me? And not that anybody was questioning it. Nobody knew that we were in this love triangle but me and her and him. But I hadn't gotten, because my own fat phobia, I was like, how are you with this fat bitch? Like, what the fuck? Like, it was like, what, while being on the down low as a trans woman. And this is high school. So, I hadn't unpacked my fat phobia and looked at it in any kind of way. So I was on my default fat phobic motherfucker. And so I was like, and then he explained that he liked big girls. He liked big girls. He liked trans women and he liked big girls. That was his two fetishes, his lanes. And so I didn't understand it because I was too busy trying to fit the status quo. Slim, hot, feminine, light skin. I was trying to fit this status, this look. I was trying to be this thing that I thought the world wanted me to be. Not the world, because I didn't want to be a white girl, but the black culture. I thought this is what I wanted to be. Is it a fetish or is it just preference? It's a fetish for sure. Um, for him. Now I don't know about you, but for him, it's a fucking fetish. For sure. It can, and it actually there's a very thin line between fetish and preference. I have a and it can be both. I have a preference for dark men, but there is a level of fetishism that I have for dark men. Um, because your desires are rooted in something. As I examine myself, my desires are rooted in colorism. It's rooted. I like dark skinned men because my brain associates them with masculinity. So, what does that say about how I think? Not how I think now, because I've dismantled it. But if I think dark skin in men is associated with masculinity, how do I read dark skin in women? How, if I these is a thing, where is your preferences set up? How did they come about? It may be, how did it come? Where did it come from? A lot of people don't examine that. They just think about it like, oh, I just what I like. They don't examine what came along with it. And for him particularly, he married big women, but he also divorced all his women because they got the surgery, they got the sleeve. And so when they start getting skinny, he left them. So did you actually love these women? And is your preference so cool that you can't look past them? That's a fetish. That is a fetish. If you leave in women when they get bigger, you have a fetish for skinny bitches. If you leave in women because when they get smaller, you have a fetish for, it's all fetish because you're objectifying them regardless. So you wouldn't like somebody like Prince or DeBarge at all. Like, I hate men that look like that. Hate them. Like, no. It's a very thin line between preference and fetish. It's just what it is. It's very fluid, baby. You wouldn't like somebody like Prince. No. Prince. I'm trying to think of other people. I like men that look like unambiguously black. I want you to have everything that black people have. I like men that look black. I don't want you to look like a pretty boy. I don't like that. Um, yeah. Aaron Pierre or Diamond from P Valley. So I would have everybody I wouldn't have El DeBarge or Prince. They're too feminine for me. But these ones are kind of light skinned, pretty eye boys. I would have them, but they wouldn't. I'm gonna have Aldous Hodge before I have either one of them. I'm gonna have Damson Idris before I have either one of them. Do you see what I'm saying? I realize preferences is often a prejudice. It can be. Yeah. Prejudice, preferences, fetish, all that shit is connected. All that shit is connected. And it's rooted in something. And I don't date women. So there's no consequences for me to call out. Do you see what I'm saying? Because I don't date women, there's no kind nothing. I don't need to treat light skinned or dark skinned women better because I don't date them motherfuckers. So I don't know. I don't even engage with them on no desirability level. So, and the women that I'm attracted to are dark skinned too. Like when I women that I'm like, oh my God, you are so fine. Women like that. Like I remember I went to the studio and recorded, and there was this girl in the studio, and they were writing outside in the lobby, and I was just looking at her like, oh my gosh, she is so fine. Like more than the dudes that were sitting out there. That's rare for me. But I kept looking at her, and she was like a stud, and she just was so fine. Like she had like some long braids, but they were like braided in like this design. And she was so fine. Like she was more attractive than the dudes that were in the room, the dudes that were in that space. And most, even when I was younger, like I remember this when I was little, this girl, when we both were 7 years old, and her name was April, and she was the prettiest little girl. We both were 7, and I used to be infatuated with her. She was so pretty. She was super, super dark, and they used to have her hair was super long because they used to have the little bubbles in her hair and barrettes, and she had the most gorgeous smile. Um, Let me see if I can find. There was a picture of a little girl. That went viral maybe like 10 years ago. She grown now, but it went viral like 10 years ago. I want to see if I can find it. It's not even showing up no more. It was a little picture of a little girl. I think she was Ethiopian, and she was just looking, and she was just so gorgeous and smiling, and um, and that is how April looked. When I saw her picture, it reminded me of it reminded me of April. She just was like a beautiful little girl. She was Ethiopian. She's really, really grown now because it went viral probably in the early 2010s. And so I think she is in her early 20s now. And she just was like just the most beautiful, like she looked like a baby doll. And so I don't know if it's a opposite thing. I think that there's a level to it of that. I think it's a level to it. I think it's a level of that because I do when I'm with men, I love to see the contrast. Like when I'm hugging them and they got their arms around me or they touching my titties, the contrast of their skin against my skin, that's sensual to me. Um, yeah, I love it. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with
We dated for a few months and then she asked me to be her girlfriend. It was that
simple. We talk about the download niggas. Um, there and the connection of fatness. So because I was young, I didn't look at it like to see how the structures he was hiding me and hiding her. I wasn't thinking about I wasn't thinking about it in that way as a young person. It wasn't until I got older and I met another big girl and we became friends and we were in college and the dudes were literally treating us the same. Like they were literally fucking with us on the down low. um they were literally fucking with us on the down low. And she was going through the same stuff. And she clocked it and said something about it. And I was like, about comparing us, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of it like that." They're literally coming to see you at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They're telling you not to tell nobody that y'all hooking up. They are hooking up openly with the slim girls. Um, exactly how niggas is playing me, they playing you. And it was an eye-opening thing, and I just started to pay attention and how she's just in this book, how she's describing how her down low queer motherfucking chick was treating her. She was treating her with that kind of down low vibe, like, you know, long distance. We can be playing on the phone, sending letters, going to a movie theater that I know ain't none of my people gonna be at. All of that. The partnership I dreamt about with Libra Bay became a reality with Violet. Because we were in a long distance relationship in which she mostly came to visit me, I didn't know that Violet wasn't out to her friends and family back home. I knew she often presented super femme for work and church, and she would rock joggers and Jordans with a full face beat. I loved her fluidity and her androgynous style, but she still oozed big dyke energy. No amount of foundation, lipstick, or pencil skirts could hide that. When I found out that she was keeping her sexuality a secret, my first thought was, how could they not know? But even if I didn't understand how Violet kept her sexuality a secret, I knew why she did. She was extremely close with her family. They lived together and worked in similar spaces. Christianity was a huge part of their lives, and they were not the open-minded Christians who made room for gay folks. Violet wasn't just worried about facing her family's disappointment or shame. To live as she truly wanted meant risking her entire community, her housing, and her livelihood. There was a lot at stake, and she wasn't ready to chance it. Since we had mostly spent time in my city and with my people, I didn't fully understand how much of a barrier this would be for us. Violet effortlessly stepped into my world, and we were happy in it. But my first trip to visit her hometown proved that stepping into hers wouldn't be as easy.
She was afraid to hold my hand or be affectionate with me in public for fear of members of her church seeing us. I got to meet her family, but like Libra Bay, we were forced to do so under the guise of friendship. It was tense and not at all how I wanted my life to be in partnership with someone. It was difficult to think about what our relationship would look like as I stepped into the next phase of my life and career. Violet couldn't offer a lot of answers on that front yet. To move forward in the ways I needed her to would have meant she had to leave some things behind, and she wasn't ready to do that. I also wanted to see other people, and she didn't. So we decided to end our relationship. These days, I choose to date queer folks who have already crossed the bridge of shame and potential backlash that comes with opening up about their love life. It's not because I can't support someone who is struggling through that process, but because it's too much to ask of someone who isn't ready. It's not easy to walk away from the life you have just to pursue your sexual and romantic desires. And it's not an experience that you walk away from unscathed. I know this because my current primary partner, my genius bae, actually did it. Over a decade before she met me, she made a conscious decision to walk away from the environment of religious extremism she was raised in. As a result, she lost contact with her parents, her childhood friends, and a robust support system. She swapped out the pressure to conform to their way of life for the weight of guilt she carries for doing so. I love her through these internal conflicts and watch helplessly as she still struggles to build new connections. It's harder to let people in when you understand how easily even the strongest bonds can be broken. I would take her pain away from her if I could, but it's also the only way she and I get to have the life we enjoy together. I don't take any of it lightly. Coming out isn't part of my queer identity or story, but not because I decided against making a hoopla about the fact that I liked bitches. It's because unlike Libra Bay, Violet, and Genius Bay, I didn't have as much to lose. I got older and realized that the stuff my straight friends have to deal with when dating men feels really silly to me. I liked that I didn't have to follow as many rules about who I was supposed to be when I was with women. I also didn't have to come out because as a cisgender femme, my gender expression doesn't put a target on my back when I walk out the door. It does not pose a threat to the gender binary or hierarchy. Last but not least, I didn't have to come out at the risk of alienating myself from my loved ones. I come from a Christian family too. I'm sure they would love nothing more than for me to be laid up under a successful husband and carrying his child right now. But my family mostly believes in independence and minding their own business. Whatever adjustments they had to make to accommodate the fact that I suddenly had female partners were made without my knowledge. They found ways to love and accept me and my partner despite their own beliefs. They've held me down, and I'm grateful for that. I wish more Black, queer, and trans people were held like this. Let's have more Black mamas willing to love their gay and trans sons and daughters through whatever, and willing to die before they let a nigga make their child feel unwelcome in their home. Let's have more Black women willing to check our homegirls about their homophobia. Let's have more Black mamas bring their girlfriends home and take their daughters to pride picnics. Let's have more grandmas who don't give a damn that their granddaughter walks in the crib looking like a little boy and just wants to make sure she eats. My biggest beef with the heterosexual narrative, not to be confused with people who are heterosexual, is that it pulls us away from this type of communal support. It requires that Black women instead participate in transphobia and homophobia. It asks that Black women look the other way when it comes to the abuse that cishet men perpetuate against them and members of the queer community for the sake of Black family. It asks everyone to put a cap on their sexual desire, expression, and identity. It requires a scarcity mindset as opposed to an abundant one, which is exactly why my homegirl Amber J. Phillips calls heterosexuality the ghetto. It's the only ghetto I want no part of.
Period. All right. So there's that chapter, Not Straight. I really love this book. Like she a hood bitch that there's one episode where she talk about, it's called Nuck If You Buck, where she was talking about just growing up and fighting bitches. I love that just the, you know, when you're young and having to fight people, even if you don't want to, or when you do want to. She talk about that. It's just a dope book. So make sure you check it out. Yeah. I will talk to y'all later. I gotta finish watching this movie. I'm watching this movie on Prime. It's not any kind of queer nothing. It's called The Creator. It got Denzel Washington's son in it, and it's about like motherfuckers is robots and AI and all kinds of shit. It's really, really good. It started off really good. And so I gotta finish watching it. So I will holler at y'all. Make sure if you just tuning in, make sure you thumbs up. And I will chat with y'all another day. All right. Bye-bye.